Chapter 50. In number 60 high school, music classes were as rare as old antiques theory of history classes. The music teacher was Teacher Ding Ding Yu. Come to think of it, he could be considered a veteran in the music circle. He had taught a lot of students and had written a lot of songs, big and small. But apart from that famous ballad of Shu Xian, he didn't seem to have any other noteworthy works. Teacher Ding worked part-time as a music teacher in a lot of schools, and used the pitiful number of classes given to him to unearth young talents with musical accomplishments. Teacher Ding was very bitter, but couldn't say it out loud. A while ago, Teacher Ding had been invited as a guest on a variety show. Then, a group of people had surrounded him and started to ridicule him one by one. Some people said that Teacher Ding had once been a vein of pop music and had been at the forefront. Now, after so many years, Teacher Ding was still in the pop music ranks, but he was hovering at the back, and refused to fall behind. In order to carry this old man, Wuxia Nation's pop music couldn't even run. At first glance, this sounded a little sarcastic. Teacher Ding knew that this was just ridicule, and that as a musician he should have a spirit of entertainment. After hearing this, Teacher Ding still felt a little uncomfortable. But it had to be said that this vicious ridicule also made Teacher Ding re-examine his own musical path. Am I really old? Teacher Ding had never been one to admit that he was old. He felt that he was as young as the children nowadays. But every time he saw Headmaster Chen at school, the latter would respectfully call him Old Ding. This made Teacher Ding feel a heartbreak from the bottom of his heart. A lot of the time, music creation was a matter of theme and creativity. For the ballad of Shu Xian from back then, Teacher Ding had fused elements of R&B and opera into the ancient style, which doubled the rhythm of the entire song in the early stages. When the opera and the chorus came out, it instantly made people feel as if they were walking on air. Of all the songs that Teacher Ding had composed over the years, the most famous was Ballad of Shu Xian. Apart from that, there were also some songs that Wang Ling liked very much. For example, Eternal Azura, Past Events of the Great Wilderness, and so on. This was a talent, and also someone whom Wang Ling greatly admired. As a composer, Mr. Ding incorporated his own ideas into every song. He tried hard to pass on his years of musical attainments to all the musicians who were currently working hard. Even in the scientific cultivation era, music was still incomparably important and indispensable to the shaping of the mind and soul. Mr. Ding felt that no form of music would ever decline. There would always be a group of loyal listeners. However, as a musician he had to work hard and pay with his own blood, tears and sweat. Music is not a jigsaw puzzle. It is not something that can be pieced together. It is also not something that can be imitated by a parrot or copied. Mr. Ding always liked to popularize his music philosophy to everyone in his class. At the same time, he abhorred plagiarism in the music industry. As an original composer, Mr. Ding felt that he could not grow old. He still had many missions to fulfill. The last class on Friday was Mr. Ding's music class. Professor Ding slowly walked into the classroom. The entire classroom was silent and no one spoke. The students of Elite Class 1 gave this old artist enough respect. However, Mr. Ding seemed a little different today. He seemed especially happy. Did Mr. Ding have some new inspiration? Lotus Sun asked with a smile. That's right, Mr. Ding didn't deny it. I'll be releasing a new song soon. I hope everyone will like it. As soon as he said this, the whole class instantly burst into an uproar. Wow, Mr. Ding is releasing a new song. What kind of song is it? Where did the teacher get his inspiration from? Everyone remembered that it had been a long time since Mr. Ding had released a new song. The older people got, the more cautious they became. Of course, Mr. Ding was no exception. In Mr. Ding's music dictionary, there was absolutely no such thing as shoddy production. As long as he participated in the creation of a song, he would definitely give it his all. This was probably the moral integrity of the older generation of artists. Hearing the students' questions, Mr. Ding smiled. This is a school-style song, and the source of inspiration was none other than you. It was you who inspired me. Mr. Ding, don't hide it. Why don't you sing it for us? If you want to listen, of course that's fine. But I also have two small requests. Mr. Ding smiled slightly. A few days ago, I gave you guitar homework and I don't know if you've practiced it seriously. I hope that a classmate can step forward and finish the guitar part. In addition, I hope that a female classmate can sing with me. This is a song for a man and a woman to sing together. Before Mr. Ding could finish speaking, Master of Dopey slapped his thigh. My God. Mr. Ding, you're developing toward the legend of the Phoenix. Wang Ling, Lotus Sun, Super Chin, Feather Lin and Li Xianjing. Classmate Gu, please correct your attitude. After a long silence, Lotus Sun was the first to step forward. "Mr. Ding, let me sing. But the guitar. I'm not very good at it." "Okay. Thank you very much for your cooperation. Then for the guitar part, I'll pick a random boy. A man and a woman working together won't be tiring." Mr. Ding glanced at the roster and finally chose a name from the thousands of students. "Wang Ling, who is classmate Wang Ling? Please come up." Wang Ling hadn't expected Mr. Ding to pick him up. Wang Ling was used to keeping a low profile and didn't like to show off his abilities in front of others. But since Mr. Ding had picked him up, Wang Ling felt that he had no other reason to refuse. This was a teacher whom Wang Ling respected very much, and he felt that he had to give him this much face. On his arm was the new Dao Talisman seal which Wang Ming had invented, so for the time being, Wang Ling didn't have to worry about controlling his strength. The first 3 months after the new Dao Talisman seal was when the restraining effect was at its strongest. Wang Ling took out a school-issued practice guitar from his pocket and slowly walked up to the stage. "Now I'll transmit the structure of the song to you." Mr. Ding gave a gentle smile, and a spirit light appeared in his hand which slowly seeped into Wang Ling and Lotus Sun's minds. From lyric writing, composition, arrangement to singing skills, playing skills. After about 5 minutes, the transmission was over. "Do you understand?" Mr. Ding asked. Wang Ling and Lotus Sun nodded. "Then, student Wang Ling, student Lotus Sun and I will present this song, The Helplessness of the Immortal King, to everyone." After Mr. Ding said this, Wang Ling strummed the strings, and then, accompanied by the brisk and refreshing sound of the guitar, the magnetic sound was like a poem floating in the wind, and it had a different kind of charm to it. "Last night, I cultivated till the third watch again troubled by a trifle the helplessness of the immortal king, who on earth can see clearly a caddy of Tao talismans for ascension who will listen to the past true wished in fact, world peace. School life is like duckweed floating and floating, gathering and scattering unpredictably chasing dreams all the way remembering the little elf caught as a child remembering the awkward scenes of those years, holding hands, looking UPI have seen every year's brocade. Don't look back with rhythm zinging, the ballad of a common immortal, strutting forward, raising one's head as long as I have you, I won't lose control of fate." Everyone was attracted by the song and marveled at the nostalgia in every word, which was full of charm like old wine hidden in a cellar. From this melodious and cheerful song, they heard a beautiful prelude to youth, they saw the rolling never-ending wheel of youth, a simple and unadorned old guitar, gently sweeping away a period of green and lush time, it outlined the long dusty memories in their minds, memories that seemed to have passed away, but also seemed to have never passed away. The elites of Grade 1 Class 3 couldn't help feeling a little emotional. This was a song of youth that belonged to everyone. The Daily Life of the Immortal King, theme song The Helplessness of the Immortal King list of main writers, / lyrics, Ku Xuanjuan performance, Old People X Feather Sacrifice Little Rabbit producer, Su Zhao composition, Deep YS arrangement, Mill guitar, Wang Ling mix, Mr. Happy May Day, everyone. This song took a total of 3 months to compose. Before I even opened the book, I had been planning for it. From the lyrics, composition, arrangement, recording of the instruments, recording of the vocals and harmony of the singer, to the post-production mixing, and the promotion of the music video. Thank you very much to all the friends who worked together on this song. At the same time, I hope that all the brothers and sisters who truly love The Daily Life of the Immortal King and Ku Xinjun will do their best to support Ku Xuanjuan's creation. This song is currently available for download on NetEase Cloud Music. There may be a delay in searching on NetEase Cloud. If you can't find the song by name, you can search for the singer directly. Ku Xinjun, come listen to the song. On B Station, search for Ku Xinjun. You can also search on the WeChat public platform, Ku Xinjun, with the keyword, Immortal King, to see it. Chapter 51. Whether it was the heavenly silkworm potato strips or the goddamn tomatoes, as always, the names were filled with Mother Wan's domineering and violent nature. But seeing that today's dishes seemed normal, everyone breathed long sighs of relief in their hearts. Old Antique stretched out his chopsticks and picked up a slice of tomato. Mother Wan immediately added 3 spoonfuls of white sugar from the seasoning bag she carried with her, and then smiled at Old Antique. 3 spoonfuls of sugar goes even better with the goddamn tomatoes. Everyone, after eating Mother Wan's bento made with love, everyone saw her off at the school gate and waved goodbye to her in the breeze. Although the love bento still tasted so strange, everyone was still very touched by Mother Wan's intentions. After checking the number of people, they realized that 6 people were missing. This old mother immediately remembered the group of students from number 60 high who had come to the exchange meet between the two schools, and had hurried over to deliver the love bento that could only be eaten on Fridays in advance. It was worth mentioning that every time Mother Wan made the bento, she would count the number of people very precisely, no more and no less. Apart from Mother Wan, no one else in number 60 high could do this. This old mother, who had been in charge of number 60 high for 100 years, truly cared about the students and teachers of each batch. Goodbye, students. I'll come back to the Spirit Sword Exchange meet tomorrow if I have the chance. Mwah. After that, Mother Wan waved at everyone and left them with these chilling mwah words. She then stepped on her donkey brand flying sword and flew off in a cloud of dust. There seemed to be a lot of things to do on the eve of the Spirit Sword Exchange meet. As soon as Mother Wan left, Wang Ling's eyelids started to twitch. Disaster level, 2 stars. Wang Ling could more or less guess what was going to happen. The Dao Talisman seal on his arm was about to expire. It wasn't hard for Wang Ling to figure out what was going to happen. It was obvious that that guy was coming. That annoying guy whom Mother Wang had contacted before. Ever since he was a child, Wang Ming had always been a huge headache for Wang Ling. Even though the state classified Wang Ming's true identity as a state secret and didn't stint on lavishing praise on him, comparing his brain to something even more terrifying than a holy weapon, Wang Ling's impression of his cousin was still limited to those 99 stupid challenges. To put it bluntly, this guy was just an idiot. Moreover, this kind of stupidity was also reflected in many aspects. Of all the stupid things Wang Ming did, the one he enjoyed the most was pretending to be a cultivator. It was 4:30 p.m. on Thursday. School ended on time for number 59 high school, and there was a constant stream of students heading to the school gate in 2s and 3s. A man also stood at the school gate on time. He was dressed in coarse hemp clothes and his thick black hair was neatly trimmed. The man carried a long sword that weighed at least 50 kilograms on his back. He looked like an ascetic who traveled the world all year round. Unfortunately, his attire didn't match his temperament. If someone with a higher realm used their spiritual sense to scan him, they would immediately know that he was a muggle without any spiritual power. The essence, energy, and spirit of a cultivator contained a kind of natural essence energy. This kind of essence energy originated from heaven and earth, was born from the dantian, and circulated through the meridians of the entire body. Over time, it could change a person's temperament from the inside out, making their eyebrows shine brightly and their footsteps as light as the wind. A true cultivator could even give off a faint fragrance. Standing at the gate of number 59 high school, Wang Ming sighed in his heart. Even though he was young and promising, elegant, and extremely talented in cultivation, having talent didn't mean that he could cultivate. Because of his physique, Wang Ming had realized at a very young age that he had no fate with cultivation. Hence, he had devoted 100 times more energy to scientific research. Watching impatiently as the Foundation Establishment high school students passed by him, Wang Ming couldn't help but look a little envious. If it wasn't for his physique, given his cultivation talent, a mere Wang Ling wouldn't be his match at all. Wang Ming thought regretfully in his heart. "Sir, who are you looking for?" Number 59 high school school guard came over and asked a little warily. With the Spirit Sword Exchange meet coming up tomorrow, number 59 high school had increased its efforts to investigate suspicious people inside and outside the school. Even parents had to report to the teachers in advance before they could enter the school, and the teachers had to call the school guard office to request permission before they could enter. But this person had been standing at the school gate since 20 minutes ago, sighing as he did so. The school guard thought that this person was a little strange. Looking at the old man, Wang Ming suddenly came back to his senses. "Hello, fellow Taoist, I'm here to look for someone." The old man sensed a trace of an ancient aura from this form of address. He looked Wang Ming up and down carefully again. "You're a parent?" The old man also had a cultivation, although it wasn't a very high realm. However, he could still distinguish a cultivator's essence, qi, and spirit. The term fellow Taoist was something that big shots with profound realms addressed each other. The old school guard stared at Wang Ming's face for a long time, but no matter how he looked at him, he couldn't tell that this person was a big shot. On the contrary, the more he looked, the more suspicious he felt. Yes, I'm a parent. I'm here to look for someone." Wang Ming carefully calculated his seniority. When all was said and done, he was also an older brother. He was a whole 6 years older than Wang Ling. It didn't seem wrong to call him a parent. Thus he nodded. "Which student's parent are you and which class?" "I'm here to look for number 60 high school's Wang Ling. He's representing the school at the exchange meet." The old man was suddenly enlightened. So it was that group of people. But as a student's parent, the old man was still suspicious of Wang Ming's identity. A parent of a foundation establishment student should at least be at the golden core stage, right? Most of the school teachers were at the golden core stage, and the old guard had come into contact with them a lot, so he could still distinguish this aura. It was very obvious that this person didn't have the slightest bit of spirit energy on him. Thinking about the recent assassination attempt by Shadow Stream at number 60 high school, the old guard's thoughts couldn't help drifting. In the last 2 days, the higher-ups had issued clear orders to be on guard for fear that Shadow Stream would take advantage of the Spirit Sword exchange meet to retaliate. Now, number 59 high school's entrance examination was very strict, and internal security had arranged patrols and experts to keep watch. To be honest, the old guard didn't think that Shadow Stream would have the guts to brazenly sneak into the school. But this young man pretending to be a cultivator had indeed successfully attracted the old man's attention. Chapter 52. However, the old man didn't have any evidence to prove that Wang Ming was pretending to be a cultivator. This was a society ruled by law, and everything required evidence. This old man, who had been in the criminal investigation department for many years, naturally understood this principle. After pondering for a moment, the old man held out his hand to Wang Ming. "Sir, please give me your ID card. If you're a parent, our school authorities will verify your identity." Wang Ming didn't think too much about it, and straightaway fished out his ID card from his pocket. The old man took his ID card, turned to the guard room, and took out a portable card scanner before inserting his ID card into it. For the last 2 days, number 59 high school had been on high alert in order to ensure that the exchange meet between the two schools could proceed smoothly. This portable card scanner was used to check the identities of suspicious people. Generally, the school would only use it during the college entrance examination. As long as the ID card was inserted into the scanner, it could instantly verify whether it was real or fake. This old man, who was experienced in criminal investigation, thought that if this person had really been sent by criminals, it was likely that his ID card wasn't real either. It had to be said that the old man's judgment in criminal investigation was indeed very good. Wang Ming's ID card was indeed fake. But the producer of this fake ID card was none other than Wuxia Nation's Cultivation Academy of Science. Official forgeries were the most lethal. Wang Ming's identity had always been protected by Wuxia Nation as a state secret, and no one could find out anything about him. Take this fake ID card for example. Apart from his age, basically everything else was fake. What birthplace, ID number, and even his portrait had been filtered to make him look good. This could be considered special treatment for Wang Ming, the youngest academician in Wuxia Nation's history. So, forget a mere old school guard. Even if the cultivation police personally came to check his ID card, Wang Ming wouldn't be able to do it. Wang Ming didn't even have to be modest. In the end, just as Wang Ming had expected, his ID card passed the card scanner very smoothly. Like a POS machine, the card scanner printed out a long list, which gave the old school guard a blank look. Name: Wang Xiao. Gender: male. Age: 22. Place of origin: Fragrant Pavilion and Water Pavilion, Yunding Heavenly Palace, Tianba City. Wuxia Nation. Character experience: Wang Xiao heir came from a poor family, but he is extremely talented. He is one of the rarest existences in the entire cultivation continent. He has a younger sister called Wang Xiaohua, but unfortunately she is not his biological daughter. He frequents the auction houses and the underground markets. He has a female confidant, but she was born with Yin energy and cannot take care of herself. At the age of 16, he accidentally gave his first time to the legendary demon Medusa. The above information has been verified by Wuxia National Cultivation Police Department. The old man cursed in his heart when he saw this nonsensical character experience. This experience is even more incredible than a web novel. What surprised the grandpa the most was that this strange and miraculous experience had actually passed the examination of the cultivation police. There must be some kind of deal going on behind the scenes, right? It was actually Wang Ming himself who had written this unreliable life story. Back then, the president of the Cultivation Academy of Science had repeatedly asked Wang Ming to revise it. But in the end, he couldn't dissuade Wang Ming's persistence. Wang Ming had always regretted the fact that he was unable to cultivate despite his talent, so he was very serious about this kind of detail. He wasn't a cultivator, but he still wanted to pretend to be one. Whatever other cultivators had, he had to have it too. Wang Ming had summed up the life story on the ID card based on the cultivation novels he had read. No matter how inconceivable it looked to outsiders, he was at least very satisfied. As for the long sword that Wang Ming carried on his back, it weighed 100 jin, but it was a real immortal sword. Wang Ming had given this heavy longsword the name Xian Zhong. Although he didn't have spirit energy and couldn't use it, Wang Ming still braced himself and carried it wherever he went. So, to sum it up in one sentence, it was that Wang Ming was stubborn and liked to put on airs. This was also why Wang Ling hated Wang Ming a little. Wang Ming's stupidity was reflected in every aspect. This definitely wasn't just a one-sided statement. Relying on his flawless ID card, Wang Ming had entered number 59 high school as he had wished. But he wasn't in a hurry to look for Wang Ling. Instead, he turned into the grove on the side of the tree-lined path, found a secluded corner, and put down the long sword on his back. As soon as the immortal sword touched the ground, the lawn instantly sank into a shallow pit. Damn it, this sword was too heavy. Wang Ming's forehead was covered in sweat. An immortal sword that weighed 100 jin was like a toy in the hands of any Foundation establishment cultivator. But as an ordinary person, Wang Ming felt that his shoulder would be dislocated after carrying this sword for so long without taking a break. I have to deliver the Dao Talisman to Wang Ling as soon as possible. Putting on airs was one thing, but Wang Ming hadn't forgotten his mission this time. Delivering the Dao Talisman was his number one mission. After all, it was currently the only way to suppress Wang Ling's power. He had to deliver it to Wang Ling before the last Dao Talisman was about to expire. Otherwise, all of humanity could face a crisis. While he was thinking this, Wang Ming decided to set off. Just as he was about to lift the black heavy sword, a pretty girl in number 59 high school's uniform walked slowly toward him from a distance. This was a tall girl, and even number 59 high school's ugly uniform couldn't hide her beautiful face. The school jacket was slightly open, and Wang Ming could even vaguely see the other party's sexy collarbone and the plump, F***K, long straight black hair. And it was a 36D. Wang Ming was so excited that he sucked in a breath. In a flash, he picked up the 50 jin black heavy sword from the ground and carried it on his back. It was obvious that the frantic secretion of adrenaline had numbed Wang Ming's sensory nerves. Initially, Wang Ming had to crouch down to carry the sword on his back, but now it was effortless for him to lift it with one hand. "Hello, may I ask, can you do me a favor?" The long-haired girl walked over and lowered her head a little shyly. Her voice was simply too melodious, as crisp as a wind chime, and Wang Ming felt relaxed and happy when he heard it. He had really been cooped up in the research institute for too long, and it had taken him great effort to take 2 days off this time to deliver the Dao Talisman to Wang Ling. Who would have thought that his luck with women would be waiting for him here? Looking at the girl, Wang Ming instantly let his imagination run wild. Even the black heavy sword on his back didn't feel heavy anymore. "Of course, no problem. How can I help you?" As a gentleman, Wang Ming felt that he had no reason to refuse a beautiful woman's request. Chapter 53. When a tall, beautiful young girl delicately stretched out her hand to ask for help, most men wouldn't refuse. At first, there didn't seem to be anything wrong with the girl's words, but anyone who had studied in a cultivation school would definitely be able to pick out a lot of loopholes in her words. First of all, it was impossible for a spirit sword to be stuck in a stone, unless the stone was a divine striking stone. Otherwise, a normal stone wouldn't be able to resist a spirit sword at all. It would be as soft as tofu when cut. Furthermore, the gymnasium in a high school cultivation school wasn't open all day, especially when number 59 high school had been heavily guarded for the past 2 days. Anyone who wanted to use the gymnasium had to submit an application in advance, and it would only be open during the application period. It was closed for the rest of the time. That was because the gymnasium's locker room was a surveillance blind spot, and it was very likely that criminals would take advantage of it. Number 59 high school school leaders had already done their best to be on guard, and had thought of everything they could think of. But if the opponent wasn't a normal person, there was nothing they could do. Wang Ming had thought that his spring had arrived. Following the girl's gravitational pull, he floated to the gymnasium, but was stunned to find that the main gate was locked. It had already been closed. This scene finally calmed Wang Ming's feverish mind a little, and this strongest brain in Wuxia Nation started to feel that something wasn't right. At that moment, the girl who had been walking in front also paused, turned around slightly and gave Wang Ming a mysterious smile. "The main gate is locked. Classmate Jiang, why don't you wait until class tomorrow and ask the teacher for it?" This smile was really too strange, and Wang Ming's heart trembled when he saw it. He wasn't a fool. As the strongest scientific brain officially recognized by Wuxia Nation, even if his knowledge of cultivation was limited to those messy cultivation novels, he still had the basic ability to read a person's body language. His intuition told him that there was something very wrong with this girl's smile. "Mr. Wang Shower, Oh no, it's more appropriate to call you Mr. Wang Ming, right? The strongest brain officially designated by Huaxiao Nation? The girl narrowed her eyes and maintained her smile, her expression unchanging. We spent a lot of effort to find you. Wang Ming was frightened by these words. His identity had been closely guarded. To the outside world he was just Wang Xiaoer. That Wang Xiao heir who lived in Qianba City's cloud-top heavenly palace's fragrant pavilion. Wang Ming's scalp went numb. Who the hell are you? At that moment Wang Ming's brain cells started to spin at high speed again. Jiang Luing, he felt that the name was somewhat familiar. Flowing shadow. Flowing shadow. Flowing shadow? Wang Ming instantly froze. This girl was from Shadow Stream? It seems like our strongest brain has thought of something. The young girl smiled and took off her coat, showing the golden ribbon tied around her arm. Wang Ming was once again absent-minded. Shadow Stream Gold Ribbon Assassin. This was not only an expert assassin but also an expert among experts. Moreover, a Shadow Stream Gold Ribbon expert signified that this person was also a high-level member of Shadow Stream. Wang Ming remembered that he had once read a confidential report from the Research Institute. Among the top 5 killers on the current international ranking list of killers, Shadow Stream's Gold Ribbon killers occupied the 2nd to 5th places. As for the legendary number 1 assassin with the code name, Teacher Killer. To this day the International Intelligence Agency was able to accurately grasp the information of the top assassin in the world. At the moment, none of this was important. The most important thing was that Shadow Stream's people had actually started to move again. The Spirit Sword exchange meet between the two schools was just around the corner. Needless to say, Wang Ming knew that this group of people probably wanted to stir up trouble again. Although Wang Ming didn't think that this group of people would be able to stir up any waves. After all, Wang Ling was there. In an extremely short period of time, Wang Ming quickly sorted out his thoughts and looked at the young girl as he spoke. Your real target isn't me, right? Seeing that the young girl wasn't speaking, Wang Ming continued, your goal is revenge. Am I right? You're trying to kidnap me, Huaxiao's strongest brain, and use me as a hostage to hijack the exchange meet between the two schools tomorrow? Jiang Luing smiled slightly. Let's just say you're right. But have you ever thought that even if you find out my identity is a secret to the outside world? In other people's eyes, you've just kidnapped an ordinary person of no value. Wang Ming was sure that the young girl wouldn't hurt him for the time being, so he started to calm down. What if we reveal your true identity? Wang Ming was startled by this answer. What's in it for you? As long as it's not good for you, it's good for our Shadow Stream. The Red Ribbon assassins that we painstakingly nurtured were all killed in a rundown school like that. Now that I think about it, it's still inconceivable. At the Spirit Sword exchange meet tomorrow, the leaders of both schools will be present. In other words, all the experts will be present. Holy shit. You want to catch us all in one fell swoop? Wang Ming was stunned. What's there to be shocked about? Why not? It was just 2 ordinary high schools. According to the intelligence, the strongest expert who would be present tomorrow was only at the peak of the late Gold Core realm, right? With just this bit of strength I can crush one with one hand. The young girl revealed her small canine teeth and smiled sinisterly. Wang Ming, first of all, putting aside the question of whether or not they could crush Wang Ling to death. Wang Ming felt that based on the last time Shadow Stream had sent out their Red Ribbon assassins, it was very clear that Shadow Stream's higher-ups hadn't learned their lesson at all. Speaking of which, they didn't know what kind of enemy they were facing at all, right? This was Wang Ling. Once his power went out of control, even Wang Ming himself would be afraid of him. Miss, I advise you to give up on this idea as soon as possible and go home. Your mom is calling you for dinner. Wang Ming tried his best to persuade her. In this world, there was actually someone even more stupid than him. Wang Ming really couldn't understand why such a cute and beautiful girl would insist on courting death. That won't do. It was clear that the young girl was determined this time. We've been preparing for this revenge operation for a long time. As she spoke, the young girl waved her hand. Spirit light flashed at her fingertips, and a hexagonal crystal instantly appeared in her palm. You should be very familiar with this thing, right? So it was you who stole the Void Stone from the Research Institute. Wang Ming's eyes widened. Wang Ming was very familiar with this thing. This was a magic treasure that was currently being developed. Based on the magic treasure itself, it had been combined with modern space technology, and was a cultivation black technology magic treasure that was still in the testing stage. With the power of this magic treasure, not only could one teleport an unlimited number of times within a range of 200 meters, it could also isolate one's aura in an alternate dimension, making it impossible for people to detect it with their spiritual senses. However, such a treasure that was integrated with modern black technology was brazenly stolen from the research institute not long ago. Huaxiao Nation's Academy of Sciences had been urgently investigating this matter, but Wang Ming never expected that the Void Stone would actually fall into Shadow Stream's hands. This group of killers who killed without batting an eye had obtained the power of the Void Stone. It was simply unimaginable. With one hand on Wang Ming's shoulder, the young girl skillfully manipulated the Void Stone with the other. Wang Ming felt his vision blur, and when he came back to his senses, he realized that he had already landed firmly in the gym's locker room. Before the Spirit Sword exchange meet tomorrow, our strongest brain will have trouble staying here for the night. May I ask what time is it? It's almost 6 o'clock. What the hell? It's already 6 o'clock? Wang Ming's eyes widened in astonishment. He hadn't given Wang Ling the new version of the Dao Talisman yet. Wang Ming did a simple calculation. It seemed that there wasn't much time left before the old version of the Dao Talisman completely lost its effect. What, your mom wants you to go home for dinner? Seeing Wang Ming's panicked expression, Jiang Luiying couldn't help laughing sweetly. After calming down and thinking for a moment, Wang Ming replied very seriously. Big sister, you might not believe me when I say this. If you don't let me out, the earth might be destroyed. Chapter 54. It took Jiang Luiying about half a minute to digest the information Wang Ming had given her. Then she pinched Wang Ming's chin and observed him carefully. It wasn't until she confirmed once again that this man wasn't in disguise and was the real Wang Ming that she heaved a long sigh of relief. As Wang Ling's cousin, Wang Ming and Wang Ling actually resembled each other a little. As long as he gave up his old cultivator disguise, Wang Ling felt that this guy could still be considered young and fresh. But the difference between the two was that Wang Ling had never been a narcissist, while Wang Ming would stare at himself in the mirror all day long and be infatuated with himself. In order to prevent Wang Ming from getting distracted during his research, the Research Institute had replaced all the objects that reflected his image. Wang Ming was an idiot, and this idiocy was reflected in every aspect, especially his narcissism. Do you know, in all my years this is the first time a girl has pinched my chin. Being pinched by a beautiful girl's little hand and stared at for a long time made Wang Ming a little restless. But big sister, now really isn't the time to flirt. I'm giving you 3 minutes to let me out, otherwise the whole world will be finished. When that time comes, forget about your grand revenge, you might not even be able to find your own ashes. Who the F***K is flirting with you? Jiang Luiying couldn't help swearing, her big 36D breasts jiggling with anger. She didn't speak for a long time, and seriously suspected that she had kidnapped the wrong person. She hadn't kidnapped the strongest brain, but the strongest retard. After thinking for a moment, Jiang Luiying suddenly thought of something. Given Wang Ming's current identity plus the pressure of work, maybe, there really was something wrong with his brain. People who worked in scientific research tended to have very divergent thinking, and this kind of person was most prone to paranoia. After muttering to herself for a while, Jiang Luiying crouched down and said to Wang Ming, I'm very sorry, my tone just now wasn't very good. There's something I should confirm with you. As a qualified kidnapper, Jiang Luiying felt that it was very necessary to pay attention to a hostage's mental health. Otherwise, it wouldn't be good if the hostage went crazy before he could be used. Furthermore, this was a hostage with paranoia, and was very likely to be suicidal. What is it? Wang Ming ducked into a corner of the locker room. You're delusional, aren't you? In other words, there's something wrong with his brain. You're the one with a problem in your head. You don't have to pretend. I already know. Jiang Lu cupped his chin in his hand and looked at Wang Ming calmly. I've studied some basic psychology before. With the degree of paranoia that you have, imagining that the earth will be destroyed every day, this is obviously beyond cure. You should pay attention to it. Didn't the Cultivation Academy of Science do anything about it? You need love. The destruction of Earth is real. If you don't let me out. See, you're acting up again? Jiang Luiying rubbed Wang Ming's head. Don't worry, our Shadow Stream killers are all very professional. In order to ensure the value of the hostages, no harm was allowed to come to the hostages before they were used, both physically and mentally. As she spoke, Jiang Luiying gripped Wang Ming's hand tightly. Believe me, I'll cure you. Wang Ming already didn't know what to say. How about this, in order to show my sincerity? I'll give you a love hug first. As soon as the girl said this, Wang Ming felt a pair of hands wrap around his back and forcibly encircle him. Immediately after, he felt two incomparably huge shadows pressing down on him like Mount Tai, tightly covering his face. Wang Ming. F***K. These two things were really too big. He couldn't breathe at all. The girl hugged Wang Ming for a full 2 minutes before she let go. Then she was stunned to find that Wang Ming had already fainted, and 2 streams of dark red blood were gushing out of his nose. At that moment, Jiang Luiying truly felt the seriousness of the problem. She immediately dialed a number on her wristwatch. "Sister, I've caught the person. But this person seems to have a problem with his brain. My initial assessment is that the other party has a very serious paranoia. I gave him emergency treatment just now, but I didn't expect him to actually have a nosebleed." The voice on the other end of the line was cold and sweet. "How did you treat him?" "Of course it's to give him a hug of love. This kind of serious mental illness needs humanistic care." The woman on the other end of the line clearly sucked in a cold breath. "I understand. Sister, what do you understand? It's not that there's a problem with his brain, it's that there's a problem with yours." Wang Ling stood at the entrance of number 59 High School's dormitory and gazed deeply into the distance, his eyelids twitching at a steady pace for more than 5 minutes. The disaster level had directly risen from 2 stars to 3 stars. Looking at the current situation, this disaster warning still didn't look like it was going to stop. Wang Ling could more or less guess what on earth this warning foretold. The old version of the Dao Talisman seal was about to expire. It would be completely removed in an hour at most. But until now there was still no sign of Wang Ming. Wang Ling closed his eyes and released his spiritual senses in an attempt to track down Wang Ming's aura, but realized that he couldn't find it at all. He had clearly sensed Wang Ming's aura earlier. Furthermore, he knew that Wang Ming had already entered number 59 High School. Wang Ling had assumed that Wang Ming would arrive soon, so he had waited at the entrance of the school dormitory. But the strange thing was that when Wang Ling tried to track down Wang Ming's aura again, he suddenly realized that it had suddenly disappeared. It was as if Wang Ming had evaporated from the face of the earth. Of course, if Wang Ling's power was completely unsealed, he would be able to immediately track down Wang Ming's aura no matter where it was. But by then it would be too late. This annoying guy, had something really happened to him? Wang Ling stared into the air and frowned a little irritably. It was very obvious that something had happened to Wang Ming. Furthermore, it was very likely that his aura had been masked by some magic treasure. Although he didn't know Wang Ming's exact location, Wang Ling was certain that Wang Ming was definitely still at number 59 High School and hadn't left its perimeter. Since he couldn't use his spiritual senses to track down Wang Ling's aura, there was only one way left for Wang Ling to think of. Wang Ling walked under the shade of a small tree where there was no one around. First, a pair of cat ears appeared on his head, and then his entire body shrank as he turned into a black and white Persian cat. In this critical moment, Wang Ling's first thought was of those little wild cats in number 59 High School's cherry blossom forest. Chapter 55. Whenever Wang Ling ran into any trouble at school, the first thing he thought of was never to ask his classmates or teachers for help. Of course, part of this was Wang Ling's own pride, but more than that, he wasn't used to it. Wang Ling wasn't used to asking other people to do things for him. He was used to being alone, and even if he ran into trouble, he always wanted to solve everything on his own in silence. For Wang Ling, asking for help from his classmates and teachers didn't exist at all. Of course, in an urgent situation like this, there were times when Wang Ling would mobilize a special group of people. These people could be bees flying among thousands of flowers, or they could be little ants everywhere, and then there were the stray cats scattered around the school. In any case, the group that Wang Ling mobilized absolutely couldn't be people. In fact, whether it was bees or ants, they all had their own limitations. Although there were a lot of them because of their low intelligence, even Wang Ling found it difficult to control them. No matter how melodious your zither was, it was useless to play the lute to a cow. Thus, the stray cats in 2s and 3s on the school were probably the group that Wang Ling was most familiar with so far. In the minds of all stray cats, apart from foraging for food, sleeping, basking in the sun, and playing Dao all day long, there was one more important thing, and that was to find their own organization and grow up healthily under the care and love of the organization's leader. After a long period of wandering, every stray cat recognized the tragic fact that no shit-shoveling officer would take them in. They put down the last bit of pride in their hearts and began to huddle together with other cats who were in the same situation as them. After all, an unorganized stray cat nowadays couldn't even get a piece of dried salted fish. And this was the cruel reality of cat society. Thus, although most stray cats looked disorganized, they were in fact very disciplined. They would go out for a stroll at a set time, and then return to the secret base at the set time. They would never give the criminals who caused trouble at night the slightest chance to hurt them. So to sum up, this group of stray cats without shit-shoveling officers were actually very united. Take the stray cats in Peiyuan district for example. Each of them had their own team, and there was competition between them as well as alliances. The cat world looked very leisurely and lazy, but in fact, it wasn't as simple as people thought. Cats had their own problems. They would make noise, fight, and claim territories. Of course, they also had their own beliefs. Especially for these thousands of stray cat groups, big and small, the existence they all believed in was immortal meow. There were many legends about immortal meow, but although they sounded exaggerated, there were 4 things that all the cats believed in the legends that were passed down by word of mouth. There were many witnesses to these 4 incidents, and many of the older generation of stray cats could testify as well. One of the legends. Immortal Meow's origins. Many cats could no longer remember when Immortal Meow debuted. All they knew was that Immortal Meow had appeared very suddenly, coming and going without a trace, like a mysterious dragon whose tail was nowhere to be seen. Most of the time, they would suddenly appear behind a cloud of mist. It gave the cats a feeling that they had the demeanor of an immortal. Over time, the name Immortal Meow came to be. The second legend. It was about Immortal Meow's debut. Immortal Meow's debut wasn't simply because of the way it appeared. It was more because of its innate aura and majesty of an elder. Almost all the kittens remembered the major events that had taken place when Immortal Meow had made his debut. The first was that Immortal Meow had single-handedly wiped out all the rats hiding in the sewers of Peiyuan district within a 5,000-kilometer radius. It had established enough living space for the numerous stray cats who were weak and alone. Rats bred much faster than cats, and there were more than 10 rats in one litter, while most of the stray cats were single. Over time, the rats outnumbered the cats. If it hadn't been for Immortal Meow, the cats wouldn't have had enough living space at all, and they wouldn't have been able to establish their own base in the sewers. It could be said that the first thing Immortal Meow did when it debuted was to make a huge contribution to the cats. Back then, the rats of Peiyuan district had either fled or scattered, and some had even been knocked unconscious by Immortal Meow's pressure. Then the stray cats had picked them up one by one and used them as food reserves. The second thing was that Immortal Meow had popularized the concept of team management to the stray cats. It was precisely because of this that the stray cats now had a home to rely on even if they didn't have a poop-shoveling officer following them. The base they had built in the sewers was their current home. And it was precisely because of the standardized team management system that the stray cats now held their heads high and puffed out their chests, completely ignoring the supercilious looks of the domesticated cats who were being looked after by the poop-shoveling officers. And the third thing was that Immortal Meow had driven away the big dog gang in Peiyuan district, which had taken pleasure in terrorizing the stray cats. At that time, this group of stray dogs, led by a husky, had all been scared witless by Immortal Meow, and didn't even dare let out a fart as they ran. The third legend. Immortal Meow's retirement. After these 3 things had been accomplished, Immortal Meow had gradually disappeared from the sight of all the cats in Peiyuan district. The stray cats had spontaneously organized all kinds of search activities, and some had even crouched in trees 24 hours a day, just to get the slightest clue about Immortal Meow. But unfortunately their efforts had all been in vain. Immortal Meow had never appeared again. Like Lei Feng who had helped an old lady cross the road without leaving his name, it had completely disappeared. Of course, despite this, Immortal Meow's position in the hearts of all the stray cats in Peiyuan district was unshakable. This belief had even spread beyond Peiyuan district. It could be said that the cultural beliefs of the stray cats in other districts had now been deeply influenced by the cats in Peiyuan district. Finally, the fourth legend. The image of Immortal Meow. There were many different opinions among the stray cats about Immortal Meow's appearance. Some cats thought that Immortal Meow was a mighty and majestic mutated muscled civet, standing at 1.8 meters tall, the same height as a human. Others said that Immortal Meow was an alien mechanical cat from the future, with a slightly chubby blue body and a noble red nose. As for the cloud of mist that had suddenly appeared, it was very likely that Immortal Meow's steam engine had come into play. Of course, the above legends were all unreliable. As for Immortal Meow's image, the older generation of stray cats had long since settled on it. An old cat born with an unusual physique had once seen it with its own eyes from that cloud of mist. Chapter 56. Wang Ling nimbly jumped onto a spirit-gathering tree and narrowed his eyes slightly as he gazed into the distance. A cat's body was very light, and its paws could cushion its fall as much as possible. Otherwise Wang Ling wouldn't have dared to jump around like this in his human form. But he wasn't used to it. After transforming into a cat, Wang Ling's field of vision had shrunk a lot. Of course, he was more proficient in controlling his body in this transformation state than He Buffing. He Buffing had only used the advanced transformation spell, but Wang Ling had used the Great Transformation spell, one of the 3,000 great spells. The effects of these two spells were the same, but the experience after using them were completely different. The advanced transformation spell often took a long time to practice and get used to anything. The smaller the object, the shorter the duration. The Great Transformation spell, on the other hand, lasted for a long time, and wouldn't be affected by the size of the object it transformed into. Furthermore, it wouldn't cause discomfort to the soul. To put it bluntly, one came from an advanced spell book while the other came from the 3,000 great spells. That was the difference. Standing on the top of the spirit gathering tree, Wang Ling spread out his spiritual senses to capture the auras of the cats. He had heard a few cats mention before that the boss of this area was called Jing Tan. Apart from cat boss Jing Tan, no one else could command the stray cats in this area. The management of stray cats was very strict, and these strict rules stemmed from the team management system that Wang Ling had popularized for them back then. But what surprised Wang Ling was that even after he had withdrawn from the cat world for so long, these cats still strictly abided by the management system. There were always small-scale fights over territory and food resources between the various groups they formed, but at critical moments, the cats were very cohesive and united against a common enemy. Wang Ling usually didn't deliberately pay attention to or care about these situations. That was because he could always learn something from the stray cats on the street corners on his way to school every day through the mind-reading ability. Of course, Wang Ling would never have thought that his unintentional act back then would now turn out to be an important part of saving the world. There was only 1 hour left before the Earth was destroyed. Now, finding Jing Tan and then using its power to find Wang Ming had become the key to this entire matter. Perhaps no one could have imagined that the ones who would save the world would actually be the stray cats that had been abandoned by people in the past. Back then, after popularizing the concept of team management for stray cats in Peiyuan District, and after solving the cats' various problems of living space and food resources, Wang Ling had chosen to retire. He remembered quite a few of the cat bosses in those areas, but most of them had been first-generation leaders. The ones that left the deepest impression on Wang Ling were the 3 cat tyrants known as the Little Tigers. Thunder Tiger Tang Shi, Little Handsome Tiger Song Ci, Obedient Tiger Yuan Xiu. These 3 cat tyrants of the past had long since become old cats that sat behind the scenes and gave orders. Based on the scale of their development over the years, Wang Ling felt that these 3 cat tyrants were now each in charge of a cat army. As for Jing Tan, it was still very small, but as the boss of the stray cats in number 59 high school, it could be considered a leader of the cat group. As the saying goes, don't treat the village chief as an incompetent cadre. Wang Ling didn't discriminate against the village head, nor would he discriminate against a cat. When he returned to the patch of cherry trees, it was already after school, and there were a few students here and there looking at the flowers. Wang Ling could smell the sour stench of love in the air. Following the scent, he quickly found the cats who had been rolling around under the cherry trees yesterday a few hundred meters away. These cats were all hybrids who had been abandoned at a very young age. After all, Wang Ling wasn't a cat expert, and he couldn't tell what breed they were at first glance from their appearance. But it didn't matter anymore. If he wanted to find Jing Tan, he could only use these cats to lead him there. He had never seen Jing Tan before and didn't know what its aura was like, otherwise he could completely detect it and directly teleport there. After thinking for a moment, Wang Ling strolled over and took the initiative to approach them. But just as he approached them, he once again heard their thoughts. The big cat at the front. Look, there's a girl coming over. 2 cat. Wow. It's a black and white Persian cat. 3 cats. Its fur color is so beautiful, it must be a beauty among cats. 4 cats. Don't tell me it wants to hook up with boss? Big cat smiled slightly. Do you even need to ask? Beautiful cats are only fit for the strong. Wang Ling. Damn. I'm AF *** king man. Wang Ling now felt that choosing to turn into such a beautiful Persian cat back then had really been a big mistake. Seeing Wang Ling walk toward it step by step, Big Cat felt that its fur was a little dirty and a little inelegant from rolling around on the ground just now, so it crouched down, bent over, and started to lick the ground, not even letting go of its own little butt. F*** K, this was obviously even more inelegant, okay? Fortunately, Wang Ling wasn't in the mood to argue with these cats. Staring at them, he directly asked telepathically, "Where is Jing Tan?" Wang Ling's deep voice rang out in the 4 cats' minds, and they instantly looked embarrassed. F***K. They had actually gotten the wrong gender. This cat turned out to be a male. Big Cat instantly looked disappointed, as if it had been rejected by a female cat. It lowered its head and collapsed to the ground. Why, it's a male. Do you have to be so King disappointed? Also, that wasn't the point at all. The point was, where was Zheng Tan? Wang Ling felt that these cats were a little careless. They had actually completely ignored the fact that he had used telepathy. Big Cat weakly raised a paw and lamented, "What's the point of a cat's life without a beauty to accompany it?" Wang Ling was speechless. But fortunately, he had already made preparations. There was a flash of spirit light on the ground, and the salted fish-flavored crispy noodle snacks that Wang Ling had prepared in advance suddenly appeared. This was all Wang Ling had on him, and he had originally planned to secretly enjoy them in the middle of the night when no one was around. Wow! Limited edition salted fish crispy noodle snacks. The cat's eyes instantly lit up, and Big Cat jumped up from the ground and rudely rubbed Wang Ling's head with its paw. "Ah, brother, you're very smart. Since you've asked so sincerely, I'll take you to the boss." This was really a cat that changed its attitude faster than one could flip a book. Wang Ling sighed in his heart. It was said that stray cats were all foodies, and this was indeed true. Wang Ling's heart bled as he watched Big Cat put his 3 limited edition crispy noodle snacks into the Chenkuan Space's small belly pocket. At the same time, he had some doubts about the current style of the cat world. He hadn't expected that in just a few years since he had left, these low-level cadres would actually start to openly accept bribes. This matter had to be dealt with strictly and rectified. About 5 minutes later, led by the 4 cats, Wang Ling passed through an inconspicuous little hole in the corner of the Sakura garden. The hole was firmly blocked by 2 thick cherry trees, and it was very difficult to see from a human's point of view. After passing through the hole, Wang Ling realized that it was an alley of residential buildings. On the east side of the alley was a road sign with the words, "De Huang Road." Following Big Cat, Wang Ling came to an old willow tree that was so wide that 5 or 6 people wouldn't be able to wrap their arms around it. This tree had been rooted here for at least several hundred years. It was said that it had been struck by lightning, but it still stood firm here. Chapter 57. Wang Ling easily jumped onto a treetop and looked around the small tree hole for a long time, feeling that the space inside was bottomless. He immediately knew that the space inside this tree hole had been developed using space expansion technology. This also proved that Big Cat Zheng Tan's IQ definitely wasn't low, otherwise it would never have had the intelligence to think of opening up a space. Big Cat told Wang Ling a little proudly that Zheng Tan had put in a lot of effort to open up this space back then. Of course, it wasn't Zheng Tan who had come up with this initial idea, but this old willow tree which had been rooted in this alley for 300 years. According to Big Cat, back then the spirit chi of heaven and earth had gathered, and the old willow tree had developed spiritual intelligence. In the process of transcending the tribulation, a bolt of lightning had pierced the tree. Unexpectedly, this bolt of heavenly lightning had inadvertently stimulated the old willow tree's vitality. Now, it was the old willow tree's own idea that this secret tree hole could be used by Zheng Tan. It took 100 years to cultivate a person, and it was always good to have a few friends to keep you company. How often does this spirit tree wake up? Wang Ling looked at Big Cat and asked telepathically. "You should call him Mr. Tree." Big Cat corrected him. "Mr. Tree sleeps for a very long time and only wakes up at night. His surname is Zhou." Wang Ling, Zhou, tree, person? Wang Ling jumped into the tree hole with the cats, and it was as if he had entered a space tunnel. After a flash of light and shadow, Wang Ling saw the huge space inside the tree hole. It really was like a secret base in a movie, where all the space had been neatly divided and used. Wang Ling saw 2 or 3 cats in white coats walk by with 2 books on their heads. Big Cat introduced them. "This is the research team of Boss Zheng Tan's team." Then Wang Ling saw dozens of sparrows wearing small goggles pecking harmoniously at the corn in the corn pond on the side. "This is our regiment's flying company." Big Cat then pointed to several cats in front of them wearing black face scarves. "These ninja cats are from the Special Operations Company. The cavalry company trains separately at another secret base outside the tree hole." Wang Ling asked telepathically, "May I ask what your regiment is called?" Big Cat pointed at a small stone tablet at the side of the base. On it, 3 words were written in human characters. "Independent Regiment." Wang Ling stared blankly at the stone tablet. While he was still in shock, Big Cat pointed at the stone tablet and said, "There's Mr. Treeman's inscription on the back." Wang Ling looked at it curiously and saw 2 lines of a poem carved on it. Left carving, frowning coldly at Satan. Right carving, bow your head and be willing to be a girl. Wang Ling was completely stunned. Looking at the overall layout of the space and the team, it had to be said that Jing Tan was a pretty smart cat. There were cavalry companies, secret service companies, and even air units made up of sparrow soldiers. This was inconceivable. The space inside the willow tree was very big, and the space expansion technology inside was the most ordinary. It wasn't very advanced. But this primitive space expansion technology was able to expand the space inside a small tree hole to the size of a human living room. For these cats, this was already more than enough space. Jing Tan's office was in the deepest part of the base. Big Cat led Wang Ling to the door of the office and had a few of its kittens wait with him at the door. It looked at Wang Ling and said, "Brother, wait a moment, I'll go inform them." Less than 5 minutes later, Jing Tan came out of the room with cat paws. With shiny black fur, pointed cat ears, and a decorative copper bell on its tail, it buzzed as it walked, instantly highlighting the imposing manner of this independent regiment commander. Wang Ling was sure that Jing Tan was definitely a cat brought up by Thunderbolt Tiger Tang Shi. Only a cat brought up by Tang Shi would have the air of a cat ruffian. It wasn't hard for Wang Ling to tell from the faint smell that Jing Tan was enjoying its dinner at this time. Furthermore, it was a spicy seafood-flavored spicy hot pot. Seeing that Wang Ling had turned into a Persian cat, Jing Tan's heterochromatic pupils involuntarily contracted. For it to be able to sit in the position of regiment commander, it was clearly much more sensitive to Persian cats than that lecherous big cat. Because the legendary immortal Meow was also a Persian cat. Whether it was Tang Shi, Song Ci or Yuan Chu, they had all ordered the cadres in their respective areas to be extremely vigilant and carefully investigate this type of cat. However, immortal Meow had already retired for a very long time. Jing Tan usually searched the vicinity a lot, but had always returned empty-handed. Now, it was suddenly told by Big Cat that a Persian cat had come to look for it. This news stunned Jing Tan. It couldn't be such a coincidence, right? Jing Tan hadn't even finished chewing the spicy fish ball in its mouth when it hurriedly ran out. It carefully stared at the Persian cat in front of it, and then saw the cat directly sit cross-legged and slowly float in the air. Back then, immortal Meow had only imparted some simple foundation establishment body tempering techniques to the stray cats when it had given them spiritual intelligence. It hadn't personally taught any of the stray cats any immortal magic. A Persian cat that could use the levitation spell, and when it did so, there was even a little mist in the air. There was no need to say anything more as Jing Tan knew this Persian cat's identity. Jing Tan. Big Cat, wow. Brother. What a great magic trick. Jing Tan really wanted to slap this idiot next to it to death. Great your ass. This is F*** King Immortal Meow. You retard. Meow. Immortal Meow? Big Cat's tongue was tied in fright. Jing Tan narrowed its eyes. It didn't need to guess to know that this guy had most likely F*** King stirred up trouble again. Boss, I really didn't know. I only received 3 packets of salted fish-flavored crispy noodle snacks. Big Cat stretched out a paw and trembled as it took out the crispy noodle snacks it had hidden in its belly pocket. Jing Tan slapped Big Cat's head to the side with one paw. This thing that couldn't do anything right but was good at ruining things. Greedy for beauty and delicious food. Damn it. Deduct bonus. Deduct salary. Don't even think about getting your year-end bonus of small dried fish. How could its chief of staff be such a blind idiot? Shiba. Jing Tan slapped its face with a paw, so angry that it couldn't speak. Picking up the crispy noodle snacks from the ground, it instantly felt a lot better. Without wasting any more time with Jing Tan, it stretched out its paw and drew a portrait of Wang Ming on the ground. At the same time, it sent a telepathic message to Jing Tan to explain its request. Wang Ling hadn't used this space shorthand technique ever since he had won the national art competition as a child. Because it was simply too eye-catching. Jing Tan nodded and turned its head to look at its chief of staff, only to see that this guy was lying on the ground with a paw over his ear, repenting. Big Biao, you idiot. It's time for you to atone for your sins. Chapter 58. It could be said that Peiyuan District was the birthplace of the stray cat team management system. After years of development, there were now more than 1,000 stray cat teams of all sizes in Peiyuan District alone. The 3 leading Cat World Army commanders, Tang Shi, Song Ci and Yuan Chu, were each in charge of their respective divisions. One army led 3 divisions, then one division led 3 brigades, then one brigade led 3 regiments. In terms of the scale of its construction, Zheng Tan's independent regiment could absolutely be called an ace regiment. Now that this ace regiment had all heard the order and set out in full force, the scene and scale were truly shocking. The old willow tree in the alley was just one of Zheng Tan's corps headquarters. Surrounding this corps headquarters were more than a dozen secret bases of various sizes on the number 59 high school campus. Furthermore, most of them were in tree holes. Now they were like a swarm of bees. The number of sparrows alone had already exceeded 1,000. As they flew in the air, they were like locusts attacking, mighty and domineering. Together with the remaining cavalry battalion, infantry battalion, special agent battalion, as well as the regular battalion, Zheng Tan's independent regiment already had more than 10,000 soldiers in all of its categories. It was almost a full division of troops. Facing the night sky, even Wang Ling couldn't help sucking in a cold breath as he watched the independent regiment sparrows swarm the number 59 high school campus in full force, as well as the stray cats appearing in the grass, treetops, and every little corner of the campus. Fortunately, it was already after school, otherwise it would be hard to avoid attracting attention by mobilizing so many people, and they might end up on the hot news the next day. The uncle patrolling every corner of the campus couldn't help frowning as he noticed that there seemed to be an especially large number of stray cats on campus today. On average, there were 3 to 4 of them lying on the dozen or so small benches on the campus. There were also some kittens that were openly doing indescribable exercises in public, which made the old school guard's face flush with fascination. Considering that it was spring and the mating season for animals, the old man didn't disturb the cats' pistoning exercise. After patrolling the area and finding no suspicious people, he turned off his flashlight and left under the moonlight. The truth was that these cats were extras that Zheng Tan had invited. They were used to attract the attention of the patrols, and the real troops were well hidden. As soon as the security guard left, the pairs of glowing eyes in the bushes opened. Cats had very good night vision, and their movements were fast, agile, and sensitive. When the hiding cats jumped out of the grass, they didn't even make a sound. The operation was smoother than expected. The commander of this operation was Zheng Tan, and the chief commander was a black-spotted, short-tailed cat. It was a little bald, and Zheng Tan had given it the nickname Monk. The Monk was the battalion commander of Battalion 1, and was the cat soldier that Zheng Tan was most satisfied with so far. In the 1st Battalion, the Monk soldiers had a very accurate impression of the Monk, which was that he was extremely intelligent. In the past, he had only enlightened the 3 cat tyrants in the Little Tigers. The other stray cats had been able to develop to this point because of the 3 cats, Tang Shi, Song Si, and Yuan Chu. Of course, he wasn't the first to enlighten a stray cat. Nowadays, there are many cultivators who have their pets awaken spiritual intelligence. Hamsters, centipedes, turtles, rabbits, Pikachu, as long as you can think of it, they have it. It was worth mentioning that monks were born with high intellect. Back when Zheng Tan had brought the monk along, it had been quite easy and hadn't taken the slightest bit of effort. The monk had learned how to catch mice as soon as it came out of its mother's womb. Now that it had awakened spiritual intelligence, the monk could use its agility and intelligence to easily toy with more than 10 dogs in the palm of its hand. The monk stood firmly on the command platform where the PE teachers usually directed the jumping exercises. A moment later, the cats that had been sent out to search Battalion 1 returned. Any results? The company commanders meowed at the monk for a long time, and the monk's whiskers trembled slightly. Have you searched the classrooms, corridors, and offices on every floor? Then the results were already very obvious. Only the gym was left. What was a man doing in the gym in the middle of the night? Peeping on a female student training, and in the end being locked in the gym? Bloody hell. How bad was this person's sense of humor? As a cat that had already seen through the world of mortals, the monk already felt powerless to complain. But this was the person Immortal Meow was looking for, so the monk couldn't say anything more. Wang Ling had always felt that the stray cat force had great potential. Although they usually looked lonely and didn't have a shit-shoveling officer to look after them, they were all alone. But as long as they gathered together, they could play a very big role. Back then, uniting these scattered stray cats had just been Wang Ling's idea, and he had inadvertently sown it. Who would have thought that it would now turn out to be of great use? There was less than half an hour left. Wang Ling could sense that the power of the Dao Talisman seal was becoming weaker and weaker. The more Wang Ling didn't dare to make any big movements, the more he was afraid that his aura would pour out uncontrollably like a flood. Fortunately, Zheng Tan soon received news from its side. A sparrow very quickly relayed the results of the frontline investigation to Zheng Tan as soon as possible. Zheng Tan nodded and looked at Wang Ling as it said, Immortal Meow, we've confirmed the location, it's in the gym. Gym? Given his spiritual senses, it was impossible for him to not be able to penetrate the gym. Wang Ling felt that the magic treasure used by the people who had kidnapped Wang Ming definitely wasn't simple. At the very least, this magic treasure definitely had the same material as his talisman seal, which was why his spiritual senses were in a blind spot. But now that the location had been confirmed, the rest was easy. Wang Ling and Zheng Tan then arrived at the entrance of the gym, which was tightly shut. A sparrow perched on a skylight above the gym, and finally confirmed Wang Ming's specific location. This guy was in the girls' locker room. Wang Ling and Zheng Tan circled around to the back of the gym and faced a thick wall. The entire gym was made of black crystal. It was very hard. There was no way it could be broken using normal methods. Of course, if the talisman seal was still in its normal range, Wang Ling would naturally be able to break it effortlessly. But the current situation was special. The talisman seal was about to expire, and Wang Ling was very afraid that if he punched it, the entire gym and everything within a radius of 100 li would be destroyed. After thinking for a while, Wang Ling ultimately didn't make a move, and just looked at Zheng Tan. Zheng Tan was instantly filled with deep veneration. Of course it didn't doubt Immortal Meow's strength. How could a mere broken door stump Immortal Meow? Zheng Tan felt that Immortal Meow was clearly giving it a chance to show off. Immediately, Zheng Tan got excited and meowed loudly behind it. 2nd Battalion Commander. 2nd Battalion Commander, where's your F*** King Dolly cannon? Bring them up here and blast this broken wall open for me. Chapter 59. Wuxia Nation's Yadali Special Treasures Research Bureau. This was a place that specialized in researching special magic treasures, and was very well known in Wuxia Nation. The leader was Billy, a military firearms expert from the United States. He was nicknamed King Billy. In the past few years, King Billy had led his team in the research of special magic weapons and had made major breakthroughs in scientific research theory and technical research. It crushed all the special magical equipment research departments. Although the name Yadali Special Treasures Research Bureau had been registered for a long time, it had only become popular in the past 2 years. The special artifact developed by King Billy's team had 3 characteristics, each of which could be summed up in 3 words. It all boils down to Dolly. First of all, the word E represented surprise. Most of the special magical weapons developed by King Billy's team had this distinctive feature. It always made people's eyes light up. Secondly, big. Not only did this mean that it was extremely useful, but it also meant that it could be used a lot. Generally, special magic treasures had a limited number of uses, and could not be used more than 3 times. After 3 times, the special magic treasure's unique magic halo would disappear. As for the special magical weapons developed by King Billy, each of them could be used at least 10 times. Finally, profit. This word also had a double meaning. On the one hand, it represented the convenience of using magical treasures and the simplicity of operation. On the other hand, it was also taken from the name of King Billy. It had a rather profound connotation. Over the years, King Billy's team had introduced quite a number of special magical weapons that were convenient to use. Among these magical weapons, the most popular one was the Yadali Cannon. Yadali Cannon Magic Weapon Usage Count, 10 Applicability. This product is suitable for all kinds of situations. It can easily shatter dark iron, dark crystal and other solid materials. Instructions for use. This product uses the sound channel to fire, only effective against buildings. After the first shout of fire, the cannon would automatically aim at the target and confirm the trajectory. After the second shout of fire, the muzzle would automatically heat up and enter the charging mode. After the third shout of fire, the Cloud Dragon missile in the barrel would be launched. When the commander and the 2nd Battalion commander cooperate to fire, the power of the Cloud Dragon missiles will automatically increase by 20% for every additional female in the building. The attack power increases by 10% with a limit of 100%. Back then, the instructions for using the Yadali cannon had been spread all over the streets and alleys. This passive effect of automatically determining one's identity and the number of females to increase its power was the most magical part of this magic treasure. Some people said that King Billy was the first person to perfectly illustrate the uniqueness of a special magical weapon. That was because the products developed by King Billy's team were all very exotic. But although King Billy's cannon was a hot product, they were not cheap. King Billy was. It was illegal for ordinary cultivator residents and commoners to use such a special magic treasure on the streets. As for Zheng Tan's Yadali cannon, it naturally hadn't been bought. Wang Ling read from Zheng Tan's memories that it had seized it from number 59 high school's former boss, Mountain Pao, around half a year ago. Shan Pao was a lustful poodle. Because it had the bloodline of a spirit dog, it had a certain level of intelligence. Shan Shan King Dan. Dazed Dan Dog Treasure of in Dan Dan God. Shan Yang Dan Dan Wolf. Shan Dan Dan Spirit Dan Kingdom Dan King Dog Dan Spirit. The Yidali cannon had been Zheng Tan's spoils of war when it had destroyed the Mountain Artillery Command Center. But Wang Ling felt that the reason why such a lethal special magic weapon could fall into the hands of a group of intelligent animals was a little complicated. These stray cats respected its immortal meow. When Wang Ling had given them lessons back then, apart from popularizing the concept of team management, he had also given them psychological counseling. These stray cats respected it as immortal meow. When Wang Ling had taught them back then, in addition to popularizing the concept of team management, he had also given them psychological counseling. Wang Ling didn't know how stray cats in other places viewed humans, but at least in Peiyuan district they had their own lives. They lived in harmony with humans. There were even plenty of righteous men who would escort ladies home in the middle of the night when they were walking alone on the streets, so that they wouldn't be attacked by criminals. Thus Wang Ling was very confident. These cats he had trained wouldn't do anything to harm humans. However, what if these special magic weapons fell into the hands of intelligent animals who happened to have dark hearts? There was no telling what the consequences would be. When Wang Ling saw a black cat and its subordinates slowly push out a mountain gun the size of a shopping basket from a hidden haystack, Wang Ling felt that the scene was a little wonderful. With this Yidali cannon, it would definitely be easy to blast a hole in this solid black crystal wall. Furthermore, it wouldn't completely destroy the building. Of course, Wang Ling had also considered Jinka before. But Jinka was actually a little similar to him. As a sword spirit, he was still too young and inexperienced, so he didn't know what to do. Wang Ling was afraid that Jinka would cut the stadium in two with one slash. Thus, he could only pin all his hopes on this Yidali cannon, which had been developed by King Billy's team. At this moment, Wang Ling couldn't do anything else, and even had to maintain a certain frequency of breathing, for fear that something would happen to him when the power of the talisman seal weakened. Even a sneeze at this time could kill someone. However, Wang Ling could still use some simple support spells. Number 59 High School's old school guard hadn't left yet, and the sound of the Yidali cannon would inevitably attract his attention, so Wang Ling set up a barrier to isolate the sound. Zheng Tan put on its goggles and stood next to the Yidali cannon with its hands on its slender waist. 2nd Battalion Commander, are you ready? Ready. Regiment Commander. Zheng Tan nodded and pressed its little cat paw on the cannon's sensor identification area to confirm the regiment commander's identity. Following Zheng Tan's gaze, the muzzle of the cannon pointed at a certain point in the wall. Fire. 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 3 shots were fired, and they were majestic and magnificent. With a boom, a beam of spirit light shot straight out of the muzzle. In just a split second, a hole as tall as half a person was instantly blasted open in the wall. In the women's locker room, Wang Ming was instantly woken up by this loud explosion. Jiang Luing stood dumbly on the spot as she watched the scene outside through the hole in the wall, her face pale with shock. On the other end of the wristwatch, a woman's voice rang out. I heard an explosion? What's going on? Jiang Luing's mouth twitched. Chapter 60. Gazing at this hole, it wasn't just Jiang Luing and Wang Ming, but also the woman on the other end of the line were silent. It was obvious that words couldn't directly convey the impact and shock of this scene in front of them. What Jiang Luing saw was a black cat wearing goggles, one hand on its waist and one hand pressing down on the cannon as it stared at Jiang Luing. There was a dazzling array of cats around and behind this black cat, on the ground, on the trees, and even on the walls hung ninja cats in black. Furthermore, Jiang Luing realized that the vast majority of these cats could actually stand on 2 feet. What the F***K, if they had a pair of wings, wouldn't they all be F***King surpassers? Happy possession? There were a lot of intelligent pets these days, but all of them were strictly controlled by Huaxiao Nation's quarantine department. Such a large number of intelligent stray cats had gathered here, and they were even holding a frightening Yidali cannon in their hands. In Jiang Luing's opinion, this scale and momentum was no less than a small demon rampage. The reason why the demon beasts from the gate between worlds were so frightening wasn't just because of their destructive power, but also because of their organization and discipline. Every time the gate between worlds had invaded Earth in the past, The demon beasts on the other end had discussed the invasion plan first. The current situation was far beyond Jiang Luiying's expectations. It was very obvious that this was a premeditated and planned rescue operation, and the target of this rescue operation was actually a bunch of cats. The woman on the other end of the line was baffled. "Are you still asleep? Sis, I'm really not lying to you, you might not believe it, but there really was a bunch of cats. Oh no, a division of cats, surrounding me. Especially the black cat leading them, it was looking at me lustfully. Charcoal? F***K. How dare you slander me?" On the other end of the line, the woman fell silent again. After an enigmatic silence, she spoke again. "I think there really is something wrong with your brain. Are you out of it? Why don't we cancel this mission?" "Sis, let me explain." Jiang Luiying was rendered speechless by her sister's words. Before she could continue, the woman on the other end of the line continued. "To be on the safe side, I'll give you half an hour to come back." After saying that, before Jiang Luiying could explain further, the woman had directly hung up. The young girl was left dumbfounded as she stared at a teacher's cat. After a brief daze, the girl rolled up her sleeves and pouted at the cats. "You little things, do you think I'm afraid of you?" The girl's strength was unfathomable, and she was no ordinary golden core cultivator. Wang Ling's eyes were like radar, and with just one glance he could see through her. This was a rare cultivator with 2 golden cores. There were 2 golden cores in his dantian. Their combined strength was dozens of times stronger than an ordinary expert at the peak of the golden elixir realm. The feeling of oppression from the angry girl was very obvious. Even the slightest fluctuation in her emotions was enough to make Wang Ming's face tremble like a wave. Although Zheng Tan had spiritual intelligence, it was at best a cat at the foundation establishment stage. Just a little pressure from the girl's emotions was enough to make its black fur instantly stand on end. Right after that, the cats of the division behind it all stood up like hedgehogs. Suddenly, a bald head popped out of the crowd and shouted, "Commander, watch out!" The monk, the commander of Battalion 1, pounced on Zheng Tan and threw it to the side. The cats of the guard company behind it also pounced on Zheng Tan and pinned it under their bodies. To be honest, Zheng Tan was very touched. After all, this was to protect itself. But when more than 10 cats suddenly pounced on it and pinned it under their bodies, it almost suffocated to death. "What are you doing?" Zheng Tan peeked its black head out from the pile of cats with deep resentment. "Protect the boss, watch out for her chest," the cats said in unison. The monk nodded. "This woman's chest is the size of a normal human woman's. So I seriously suspect that it contains a weapon of mass destruction." Zheng Tan, Wang Ling, even Wang Ming sucked in a cold breath. On one hand, he had been frightened by this bunch of cats talking in human language, and on the other hand he was astonished by the level at which they spoke. As the strongest brain in Huaxiao Nation, Wang Ming had a basic understanding of these cats' IQs. The black cat in the lead was definitely the highest, followed by the bald cat next to it. As far as animals were concerned, Wang Ming felt that the IQs of these 2 cats might even be higher than those of normal humans. Of course, they definitely wouldn't be higher than him. Wang Ming looked at the girl. "I say, big sister, haven't you noticed yet?" Jiang Luiying had a dazed and puzzled expression on her face. For the first time, Wang Ling and Wang Ming, these 2 sworn brothers, had a tacit understanding that resonated with each other. As the saying went, big breasts and no brains, it now looked like it wasn't without reason. "Big sister, given your realm, you can crush a golden core cultivator to death with one hand. Don't you realize that your oppressive might is completely useless now? This bunch of cats only have spiritual intelligence, but their actual strength isn't that strong, but now, under your oppression, they're still alive and kicking." Realization instantly dawned on the girl, and beads of sweat started to appear on her fair little face. She should have sensed it earlier. Under normal circumstances, this bunch of kittens, including this man who had no spirit energy at all, shouldn't even be able to move under her oppression. But this bunch of cats were actually playing and frolicking in the distance? Taking all these factors into account, the girl could only think of one possibility. That was, there was someone here who was even more heaven-defying than she was. That was why it was possible that her oppressive might had been affected, and that her oppressive might hadn't been able to seep out in the first place. It was like a hole that had burst a dam and was suddenly blocked. Who on earth was it? Jiang Luiying's gaze started to wander quickly between the large group of cats. At the same time, she began to release her spiritual senses frequently, as if trying hard to identify auras among them. At that moment, it seemed that the girl's IQ had finally been recharged, and she started to suspect whether there was something fishy going on between these cats. For example, there was an expert who had used shape-shifting or illusion spells to blend in with these cats. If that was really the case, it could sometimes be identified by carefully distinguishing auras. However, this method of identifying auras was only limited to when the gap between the two parties' realms wasn't too big. To be honest, if he had enough time, he could indeed calm down and play with the girl for a while longer. But now wasn't the time for hide and seek. There were only 10 minutes left, and the world was going to be King destroyed. And so, under Jiang Luiying's extremely stupefied gaze, she saw a black and white Persian cat amidst this vast crowd of cats. Step by step, it gracefully walked out of the crowd. At the same time, all the nearby cats very consciously made way for it. Was this it? The girl instantly became vigilant. Just as she was about to circulate her spirit energy, she felt a force surge out of this Persian cat and press down on her. Then, she was stunned to find that her spirit energy was actually stuck in her dantian halfway through its circulation. Furthermore, she realized that she had been imprisoned by an oppressive might and couldn't move. K. Chapter 61. A cat could actually exert such powerful pressure? The girl's shocked and pale eyes were also filled with fear. She couldn't move at all. Even her tongue was numb along with her body and she couldn't speak. In this situation, she couldn't even use the void stone. At that moment, the girl recalled what her big sister had said, but it was too late to regret it. She should have left earlier. Wang Ling felt that the girl seemed to have misunderstood something, because he hadn't released his aura or pressure to suppress her. The reason was very simple. The release of coercion was a large-scale group attack. If he recklessly released coercion without control, not only would this girl turn into a pile of meat paste, even his idiot brother and the cat of an entire division outside would be affected and turned into dregs. So the reason why the girl couldn't move was actually the effect of the Overlord body's backlash, which Wang Ling had unconsciously activated. This effect could double the pressure he had exerted on himself and reflect it back at him. The principle was actually pretty much the same as a physical backlash. For a specific case study, he could refer to burying Love young Master Su Ying, who had been turned into dregs by Wang Ling's backlash back then. Looking at the flustered and exasperated girl who couldn't resist, Wang Ming just thought it was a little funny. At the same time, he knew that Wang Ming had already seen through his identity. Although Wang Ling didn't think that his relationship with Wang Ming couldn't be considered too good, he had to admit that they had a pretty good rapport when it came to some strange things. The moment the wall had been blasted open, Wang Ming had known that it had to be Wang Ling. He looked at his wristwatch. There were less than 10 minutes left before the old version of the talisman seal would lose its effect. Wang Ming took out the talisman from his chest pocket and carefully tied it to Wang Ling's arm like a band-aid. The seal had finally been reinforced. Wang Ling gripped the cat's paw. The new version of the talisman was indeed more powerful than the old one. He could clearly sense that his strength had been significantly limited. The first 3 months after the talisman was installed were the most restrictive. For the next 3 months, Wang Ling almost didn't have to worry about breaking his chopsticks while eating, and he could even do radio gymnastics without worry. For Wang Ling, this was great news. He was happier than eating crispy noodle snacks. In order to make this talisman, I refined materials for nearly 3 years, and also fused some new ones. This time it's valid for 5 years. It should be enough for you for a while. Wang Ming didn't open his mouth, but spoke in his heart. Wang Ling could hear him clearly with his mind-reading ability. After all, there were still outsiders here, and the talisman was a secret that must not be known by others. In some sense, Wang Ming felt that Wang Ling's uncontrollable and constantly growing realm was a state secret that was more worth protecting than his so-called strongest brain in Huaxiao Nation. But Wang Ming treated this as his own secret. He had promised Father and Mother Wang that he wouldn't mention it to outsiders. Even Wang Ming's own parents didn't know this secret. If this secret were to be exposed, it would very likely lead to an endless war. As for Wang Ling, it was very likely that the country would view him as a war machine. Thus, Wang Ming was actually very concerned about Wang Ling. Never mind that she had been helping Wang Ling develop talismans with even more restrictive effects. He was even more tight-lipped when it came to secrets. Wang Ling felt that at the very least he and Wang Ming were on the same page on this matter. Wang Ling's wish was world peace. And this was also Wang Ming's elder brother's original wish. Looking at the girl who couldn't move, Wang Ming turned his head and asked Wang Ling, "What should we do with this person?" Wang Ling raised his eyebrows. What else could he do? Hand her over to the country, of course. From the very beginning, Wang Ling hadn't planned to do anything. Getting rid of a small killer like this was of no value to him. But if he handed her over to the cultivation police, it would instead be a huge boost to the investigation into the Shadow Stream incident. Get rid of one killer, but there were still thousands of killers. Helping the cultivation police to root out an international mafia den? This was the quality of a good citizen who upheld the core values of cultivation. Of course, Wang Ling didn't intend to take credit for this matter. It would be up to this Huaxiao nation's strongest brain to sort out the final mess. Wang Ming bent down and fumbled in the girl's pocket for a moment before retrieving the stolen void stone. Then, he pointed at the girl who seemed to have been hit by the sunflower acupuncture hand and sighed in his heart. Knock this guy out first. Wang Ling pondered for a moment, and in the end did as he was told. For the first time, Wang Ling felt like these two brothers were in cahoots. At the entrance to the stadium, the entire division of cats had already dispersed, leaving only Zheng Tan, De Biao and the monk. On the side, Jiang Luiying had already been tied up by Zheng Tan and the others, and was completely wrapped up like a meat dumpling. Zheng Tan gripped Wang Ling's little white paw tightly, crystal tears welling up in its eyes. It's so great to be able to fight alongside Immortal Meow this time. Don't worry, Immortal Meow, our regiment's engineering team will repair that hole overnight. Wang Ling. Wang Ling recalled the research cats in white coats he had seen at Zheng Tan's base before. Coupled with this engineering team, Wang Ling felt that in another 2 or 3 years, they would be able to King build missiles. Wang Ling didn't say anything, and only buried his shock in his heart before waving goodbye to Zheng Tan and the other cats. Zheng Tan and the other cats watched Wang Ling as they waved their little paws until he disappeared at the end of the road. Only then did they reluctantly leave. To be able to fight alongside Immortal Meow was an honor that Zheng Tan felt was enough to be recorded in the Cat Clan's annals of history. If it hadn't been for Zheng Tan's help this time, Wang Ling felt that the consequences would have been very hard to predict. Wang Ling had only taken a few steps away from Zheng Tan's line of sight when he suddenly sensed a familiar aura nearby. It was Old Antique's aura. Wang Ling probed it with his spiritual senses, and sure enough, he found that Old Antique and Director Xia were strolling hand in hand not far away. They were approaching him little by little. Wang Ming was also startled by the sudden appearance of these people, but he quickly smiled and took the initiative to greet them. Yo. Hello, teachers. Wang Ming knew it was time to show off his acting skills. Director Xia was startled. Why were there still parents at school at this time? Director Xia found it very strange. In order for the Spirit Sword Exchange meet to go smoothly tomorrow, she had already given the order that all teachers in charge weren't allowed to stay in class today. This was to prevent lawbreakers from sneaking into the school as parents. Hence, Old Antique and Xia Huaichuan were instantly on high alert at Wang Ming's appearance. This wasn't the strangest thing. The strangest thing was that there was an unconscious girl wrapped up like a dumpling next to him. Was this cosplay or bundled up? You are. I'm Wang Ling's older brother. My name is Wang Xiaoer. I'm here to see Wang Ling. Wang Ming took out his ID card. Oh, Wang Ling's older brother. Old Antique looked at the ID card to confirm Wang Ming's identity, then turned to look at Director Xia and said, Wang Ling is my student. He's also here for the Spirit Sword Exchange meet this time. Oh, I see. Hearing Old Antique's explanation, Director Xia let down her guard a little. What are you doing here at this time? I was originally going to look for Wang Ling, but before I could find him, I ran into a Shadow Stream gold ribbon killer who was here to scout out the school. Then, I took care of her in passing, so I wasted some time. Wang Ming pointed at the dumpling on the ground. Shadow Stream gold ribbon killer? Director Xia was shocked. A killer sneaking into the school without a sound was a big deal. What evidence do you have to prove that she's a Shadow Stream killer? Director Xia was still skeptical about the girl's identity. Furthermore, Old Antique also had his doubts. They had no reason to completely believe a stranger's words. If the two teachers don't believe me, you can look at the ribbon on this girl's arm to verify it. When Zheng Tan had been doing the bundling up just now, Wang Ming had asked it to reveal a little of Jiang Luiying's arm. The ribbon of a Shadow Stream killer was made of a very special material, which was also direct evidence of a killer's identity. When Old Antique found the ribbon on the girl's arm, his heart was instantly shaken. It really was a Shadow Stream gold ribbon killer. Old Antique was almost more sensitive to things from the world of killers than an ordinary person. Chapter 62. After that, this 36D girl, who was very likely to be the legendary master of Shadow Stream, was taken away by the cultivation police for interrogation that very night, along with Wang Ming. As a direct participant in this matter, Wang Ming had to go along and give a statement. Old Antique and Director Xie walked Wang Ming to the school gate, and Director Xie gripped Wang Ming's hand tightly. It's all thanks to Mr. Wang's timely intervention that we were able to nip these criminals in the bud, otherwise the consequences would have been really hard to predict. Teacher Xie, you flatter me. This is what I should do. Upholding justice and upholding justice. This has always been a cultivator's principle, hasn't it? But I'm very curious. Why can't I sense a trace of spirit energy from Mr. Wang? Could it be that Mr. Wang has some kind of magic treasure? Magic treasure? Do I still need a magic treasure at my realm? Wang Ming shook his head mysteriously and smiled slightly. Before Wang Ming could finish speaking, Director Xie and Old Antique instantly understood. Since he wasn't using a magic treasure to hide his aura, the only remaining reason was that this Mr. Wang had an extremely high realm to begin with. Otherwise, this Shadow Stream Gold Ribbon Killer wouldn't have been taken down so easily. On the side, Old Antique couldn't help sighing. I never expected Mr. Wang to have such unfathomable strength at such a young age. It really makes us admire you. Wang Ling. This guy was 2F*** King easy to fool, wasn't he? Mr. Wang, is this your cat? It looks like it's been following you. As he spoke, Director Xie noticed Wang Ling. Wang Ling had been worried that this killer girl would wake up halfway, which was why he had been following Wang Ming. On the way here just now, he had been wondering whether he should stab the girl one more time to knock her out even more thoroughly. Only now, after seeing the police stick a Dao talisman seal on the girl wrapped up like a dumpling, was Wang Ling able to breathe a sigh of relief. Wang Ming had come to give him the talisman without asking for his authority. Thus, Wuxia Nation's officials hadn't sent anyone to protect Wang Ming. If something happened to this most powerful brain here, even Wang Ling himself couldn't imagine how many people would be alarmed by this incident. First of all, a thorough investigation of number 59 High School and number 60 High School was unavoidable, which would be very bad for hiding his identity. Although he really didn't want to admit it, he couldn't deny that he and his dumbass brother were locusts tied to the same rope. Thus, after thinking it over, Wang Ling decided to follow Wang Ming for now. In any case, he had to wait for the police to arrive and ensure Wang Ming's safety first. Who knew that Dean Xie would suddenly notice him? Some people's idiocy was reflected in their IQ and EQ, but Wang Ming's idiocy was more reflected in the details of his life. For example, indulging in beauty, or pretending to be a cultivator. Wang Ming's emergency response was usually pretty quick. Director Xie said that this cat. Maybe there's something about me that attracted it, so it followed me. Wang Ling. Attract your fur ball. Hearing Director Xie mention Wang Ling, Wang Ming smiled sinisterly. Then he bent down and picked up Wang Ling, who had turned into a cat. Raise him up high. Wang Ling. Raise your mother. For the first time, Wang Ling realized that he had actually been teased by this dumbass. F***K. Just you wait. Wang Ming sat in the cultivation police car. The girl, who had been tied up like a rice dumpling, was placed in a cage at the back of the car and was guarded by 2 female police officers. As for Wang Ming, he obediently sat in the back of the car with 2 male police officers on each side. Given Wang Ming's personality, he would never let himself be the recipient of this so-called glory. Because in the end, Wang Ming used the identity of Wang Shower, not Wang Ming himself. Thus, Wang Ming didn't feel any sense of accomplishment at all. The only thing that Wang Ming felt gratified about was that he had actually teased his stupid duo on this trip to number 59 High School to deliver the talismans. Although he hadn't been able to find an opportunity to challenge Wang Ling for the 100th time this time, Wang Ming still felt that this trip hadn't been in vain. But Wang Ming felt that this trip hadn't been in vain this time. On the way, Wang Ming analyzed the 2 police officers' expressions, which looked as if they had eaten shit, and concluded that they had definitely just gotten off work when they had been notified to rush over. They had caught a big fish this time, and overtime was definitely unavoidable, so they were clearly in an exceptionally bad mood right now. The 2 police officers stared at Wang Ming. If possible, would Mr. Wang please show me your ID? To save time, let's start taking the statement now. Wang Ming obediently handed over his ID, but when the 2 police officers saw the name and place of birth on it, they were stunned on the spot. Fragrant Pavilion and Water Pavilion, Yunding Heavenly Palace, Tianba City, Wuxia Nation. There was one in Tianba City, but what the hell was Fragrant Pavilion and Water Pavilion in Yunding Heavenly Palace? The 2 police officers stared blankly at the place of birth on the ID for a long while. Then they looked at Wang Ming with a pained expression. Mr. Wang, can you stop joking at a time like this? Wang Ming felt very wronged. I say, "Comrade police officers, do you think you can tell if my ID is real or fake with your eyes? Mr. Wang, do you know that if you use a fake ID you'll be arrested for Oh, Longjing? It would be even better if you had a 82 Sprite." The two police officers had to work overtime today, so they weren't in a good mood. Now that they were being teased like this, one of the police officers gave Wang Ming an angry look. "Then do a test. If it turns out to be fake, I'll detain you for 15 days. "Do as you wish." Wang Ming shrugged fearlessly. Thus, 2 minutes later, the two police officers in the car saw a verification list drawn up by the ID card scanner. After carefully reading through this long string of mysterious characters' experiences, the two of them stared at the line, "The above information has been verified by Wuxia Nation's National Cultivation Police Department," in unison, and fell into deep thought. Furthermore, they started to doubt their lives. Less than half an hour after Wang Ming had entered the police station. To take his statement, a limited edition Aguanhai Black War chariot stopped steadily at the entrance of the cultivation police station. Two researchers in white coats hurriedly got out of the car and rushed to the police station. They brought Wang Ming out of the police station in less than 5 minutes. When the two police officers who had been responsible for taking Wang Ming's statement arrived at the entrance, they were astonished to find that the chief had actually come to the entrance to see them off. He waved goodbye to Wang Ming with an apologetic smile on his face. The two police officers were stupefied. Who on earth was this person? Chapter 63. The arrest of a girl suspected to be the master of Shadow Stream had caused quite a stir. Back then, the red ribbon killers that Shadow Stream had sent had been completely wiped out. Now, number 60 high school had come to number 59 high school for the exchange meet. In the end, this gold ribbon killer, who had wanted to take advantage of the exchange meet to cause mischief, had been arrested before she could even take the first step in her plan. The most important thing was that the person who had arrested this girl was actually the elder brother of a student at number 60 high school. Number 60 high school again? Everyone recalled all the recent Shadow Stream incidents. The National Cultivation Police had originally issued a red investigation order to investigate, but there had been no progress for several years. In the end, in less than a month after school started, a breakthrough had been created one after another around a small ordinary high school. Wasn't this school simply King toxic? This incident couldn't help but once again arouse discussion. Why had a beautiful 36D girl become a bloodthirsty demon who killed people without batting an eye? A well-prepared operation had been seen through before it had even started? Was it a twist of morality or a twist of human nature behind all this? Was it a game between light and darkness? Or was it a showdown between scheming and wisdom? The series of questions that had arisen from this incident left people puzzled no matter how they thought about it. Until now, the detained killer girl had yet to wake up, and that Wang Shower, who had stopped this vicious incident, had been forcibly taken away less than half an hour after entering the police station. It was as if this series of events had been premeditated in advance and had been completely arranged. In order to cover up Wang Ming's true identity, Wuxia Nation's Cultivation Academy of Science in the end pointed out a clear path to the bewildered police officers at the Cultivation Police Department, Shanghai City's general administration of 100 schools. Thus, after Secretary Da Kong came to the office that day to chat non-stop for several hours, Ajwa had just returned home from the office when his home phone exploded with calls again. He glanced at the phone number. There were countless missed calls, and the one who had just called was Secretary Da Kong. He had already chatted with the old leader all afternoon and was a little irritable. But he knew that he had no other choice. Ajwa had gained a lot in this position over the years. He had summed up the 4 rules of survival for 3 government departments. First, don't speak carelessly. Second, get up earlier than a chicken and sleep later than a dog. Third, work more than a donkey and eat less than a pig. And fourth and most important, the leader's call. Never. Never. I can't die. He didn't know what the old secretary who had talked to him for the whole afternoon would talk about. In the end, Ajwa picked up the landline. The landline now was a holographic projection. As soon as the call was picked up, Secretary Da Kong's face was projected into the void. Ajwa lived in an apartment for staff arranged by a government agency. Now that the government was promoting the fight against corruption, they wanted to embody the cadre's spirit of working hard and serving the people wholeheartedly. Therefore, all the cadre's apartments did not have any space expansion technology. This directly led to a problem, that was, the relatively narrow space which caused the holographic projection to look oversized. When he picked up the phone, he almost couldn't help laughing out loud. In the holographic projection, Secretary Dakong's nostrils were bigger than his head. "Hello, little Zhuozi?" Ajua was almost startled when he heard Secretary Dakong's voice on the other end of the line. Little Zhuozi? This form of address is a little intimate. To be honest, Ajua felt a little overwhelmed by the favor. "It's already so late, is there anything else, Secretary Dakong?" "Little Zhua, I really couldn't tell that you're so good at pretending. When I was in the office with you this afternoon, your expression didn't change and your heart didn't jump. So you were secretly planning and observing in secret to give me a surprise, right?" Ajua. "Hey, don't deny it. Hurry up and tell me, did you plan to catch that girl suspected to be the master of Shadow Stream?" Ajua. "I have to criticize you for this. After all, she's a gold ribbon killer. Even if you knew her route in advance, you should have at least reported it in advance. There are so many students nearby and it's after school, it's so dangerous." Hearing this, Ajwa had a rough idea of what the old secretary was talking about. On the way home, he had received a text message from the director saying that the Cultivation Police Station in Peiyuan District had arrested a gold ribbon Shadow Stream killer suspected to be the master of Shadow Stream in number 59 High School. Ajwa had originally wanted to wait until he arrived at the staff apartment to investigate the situation before replying, but he hadn't expected the old secretary to call him as soon as he stepped into the house. But listening to this, Ajwa somehow felt that something wasn't quite right. He felt that this development was the same as 6 years ago. Why the hell did it feel like an easy victory? "Secretary Dakong, all right, there's no need to explain. I know you don't want to alert the enemy, so you secretly arranged for an expert to infiltrate number 59 High School to catch a turtle in a jar, right? I'm telling you, you've made a great contribution this time." After preliminary interrogation, it was highly likely that this young girl who had been captured was the younger sister of the Master of Shadow Stream. Aren't you surprised? Was it a surprise? Isn't it exciting? Even though the Master of Shadow Stream hasn't truly appeared yet. But I believe that with this important clue, our Wuxia nation won't be too far away from uncovering the Shadow Stream incident and destroying the gang's lair. Comrade Zhua, at such a young age, you actually have this kind of intelligence, lead and execution ability. As an old comrade, I really admire you. May I ask, Secretary Dakong, where did this information come from? President Qi of Wuxia Nation's Cultivation Academy of Science personally called me to explain it. How could it be wrong? I know little Zhuozi wants to keep a low profile, but sometimes there's really no need to hide your contributions. Ajwa sucked in a cold breath. He had no idea when he had become associated with such a big-shot organization. "Little Zhuozi, I didn't expect you to be so unfathomable." On the other end of the line, Sun Dakong smiled. "At first, the higher-ups were considering whether or not to promote you. They were worried that you were too young and wouldn't be able to handle it. But I didn't expect that not only would you keep a low profile, we just investigated your group survey and found that your reputation is at the top of Songhai City's cadres. Don't worry, with today's incident as a foundation, just wait for your promotion. Ajwa, also remember to prepare well for the program. I'll be waiting to see your sky-parting sword at the Spirit Sword Exchange meet tomorrow." Chapter 64. The 4-day student exchange meet came to an end in the blink of an eye. Too many things had happened in these 4 days, such as the explosion of the Spirit Gathering Array, the collapse of the Pengzi Gang, the establishment of the General Administration of Harmony, the rehabilitation of delinquents, the near destruction of the world, and the arrest of a Shadow Stream gold ribbon assassin last night. But no one could have imagined that Wang Ling was the root cause of all this mess. Before leaving, Wang Ming had asked Old Antique and Director Xie to keep his identity a secret. The purpose of this was in fact to protect Wang Ling and prevent him from attracting too much attention. Thus, although this incident had caused a stir, apart from those inside the police department who knew that Wang Xiaoer was the elder brother of a student from number 60 High School, outsiders had very limited knowledge of this matter. They only knew that it was Comrade Ajwa of the General Administration of 100 Schools who had once again blocked Shadow Stream's invasion and protected the flowers of the motherland. But after this incident, even Wang Ling started to doubt his own toxicity. His high school days hadn't been King peaceful. Every day he was like a certain Grim Reaper primary school student. Wherever he went, people would die. Father and Mother Wang's wish for him was to smoothly obtain his high school graduation certificate and then smoothly enter university with a low profile. But looking at the current situation, Wang Ling felt that this road was going to be much more bumpy than he had expected. But in the end, life still had to go on. At night, number 59 high school's dormitory was quiet. Previously, Super Chen and Hero Gua, these two damn fat shut-ins, had been playing online in suits, ties, watches, shiny leather shoes, and drinking drinks that cost more than 5 yuan. It wasn't until not long ago that old Antique had forced them to turn off the game, and they had just fallen asleep. As for Lotus Sun and Feather Lin, these two girls, they had already laid down to rest for the sake of healthy skin. Old Antique sat on a folding chair and stood guard at the door. When it was almost time for school to end, Shadow Stream had taken advantage of the situation again, and Old Antique was once again on high alert. The safety of the students was the first priority. Old Antique had to ensure that the Spirit Sword Exchange meet would go smoothly tomorrow, and even more so ensure that his students wouldn't be harmed outside the school before they returned to number 60 high school. Wang Ling wasn't asleep either. Touching the small wooden sword lying quietly next to him, Wang Ling's mood was very complicated. He only hoped that Jinka would behave a little more normally tomorrow. Please don't go berserk. On the fourth day, which was the third Friday of the semester, the Spirit Sword Exchange meet that everyone had been looking forward to was finally about to begin. That day, gongs and drums were deafening, firecrackers were exploding, red flags were fluttering, and there was a sea of people. The exchange meet tradition had been left behind by General Yi, one of the 10 meritorious figures who had founded the nation. Back then, General Yi had fought side by side with Minister Shi and Secretary Sun in the Battle of Shimen. He had a nickname called Sword Saint. After the Battle of Shimen back then, General Yi had left a famous saying on the stone pillar of Shimen, "Your sword is my sword." To this day, this sentence was still in history textbooks, and Old Antique would emphasize it every year. This time, the momentum of the Spirit Sword Exchange meet between the two academies was quite big because it coincided with the 500th anniversary of the establishment of the two academies. Number 59 High School and number 60 High School, this pair of old enemies, chose to complete this school anniversary event in the form of a Spirit Sword Exchange meet. In fact, the relationship between the two schools had become much closer. Although Tang Jingza's group had stirred up a lot of trouble during these 4 days, they had all given up on the last day. But this didn't affect Tang Jingza and his group's confidence and battle of wits in winning the Spirit Sword Exchange meet this time. Since they couldn't use unorthodox methods to win, Tang Jingza felt that there was no harm in fighting them fair and square. Although Wang Ling didn't know where this guy's confidence came from. On number 59 High School's newly renovated wide sports field, the students of each class carried their stools and formed a circle on the track, which was divided into sections based on their classes. The empty space in the middle was reserved for the representatives of the two schools in the Spirit Sword Exchange meet this time. Wang Ling really wasn't used to an exchange meet with more than 1,000 people. He had never displayed his talents in front of so many people before. The leaders of the two schools had arrived in front of the rostrum. Number 60 High School's Headmaster Chen and Director Shi, number 59 High School's Headmaster Jin and Director Xie, the district leaders of Peiyuan District, as well as the excited old Secretary Sun Dakong and the bitter Odd Zhua. To be honest, the lineup of leaders this time was very awkward. No one had expected this old secretary to show up. Of course, the students didn't know Secretary Sun's identity at all. Furthermore, they all felt that this person was a little neurotic. They had never seen a leader wearing a motorcycle helmet on stage before. But the students could also tell that this helmet-wearing old man's identity wasn't ordinary. He was most likely a number 1 figure. Furthermore, he was a number 1 figure that even Wang Ling hadn't expected. Among the students present, only Wang Ling's heart was as clear as a mirror. To be honest, he was very afraid that this old secretary would see some clues from his actions. Not daring to look directly into the old secretary's eyes, Wang Ling sighed deeply in his heart. Now, he could only hope that he could perform as muggle-headed as possible in the Spirit Sword Exchange meet. It really wasn't a good thing to be targeted by such an almighty. In the silence, the old secretary looked around and looked at the two school leaders with a strange expression. "Why haven't you started yet?" Headmaster Chin and Headmaster Jean had helpless expressions on their faces. "The biggest leader here is you. If you don't say anything, who the hell dares to start?" Hearing the old leader's words, as the host of the Spirit Sword Exchange meet this time, Headmaster Jean sorted out his thoughts before he smiled and spoke. His voice drifted into everyone's ears. "Then, on behalf of the school leaders from number 59 High School and number 60 High School, I would like to express our gratitude to the 10 elite students from both schools who are participating in the Spirit Sword Exchange meet this time. It is precisely because of your excellence that our cultivation education will be even more glorious. The old secretary took the lead in applauding thunderously. Seeing the old secretary clap, the other school leaders on the side clapped even louder, for fear that they would make the old secretary unhappy if they didn't have the energy to clap. Everyone knew that the old secretary was a lively person, and very much liked to visit incognito places. He had already secretly attended more than 100 exchange meets like this one organized by the schools. This time, the headmasters of the two schools actually felt very honored that the old secretary had personally come to the scene without being invited. But more than that, they were actually terrified. After the applause, the scene fell silent for a moment. The female teacher who was in charge of hosting the event on the stage took the microphone and began to read out the competition rules. This time, there won't be individual events for the Spirit Sword Exchange meet. Instead, holographic images will be fused with cultivation spirit talismans to form an array. Through a perfect simulation of the trial environment and real pain, a team competition will take place. Finally, the team's victory will be decided based on the number of points it obtains in the event. Apart from the reference points gained during the Spirit Sword duel, you can also earn game coins to buy magic treasures and props to make the competition more interesting and flexible. Chapter 65. The competition system this time seems a little different from the ones I've seen in the past. Hearing the rules of the competition from the female host, the old secretary's eyes instantly lit up. In the previous Spirit Sword Exchange meets, the students basically had to show off their talents, and then the judges would grade them according to how smoothly they controlled their swords. It was both procedural and patterned, and it could be said to be boring to the extreme. But this time, the competition system was based on the team's point of view. The judges were eliminated, and the entire scoring process was handed over to the system as a comprehensive judge. This kind of scoring wasn't subjective, and was instead more fair and just. Headmaster Jean smiled slightly. The competition system this time was personally proposed by General E at the Standing Committee meeting, and it will be implemented by our two schools. This female host's explanation is a little complicated. Is there a simplified version of the competition rules? To put it simply, this competition is more like a 5v5 MOBA game. There are 3 paths, each of which contains an outer tower, a second tower, and a high tower. The students are free to choose the path they want to defend until they destroy the enemy's base crystal. After entering the game, the students can also choose one of the system's built-in functional skills. So far, only teleport, ignite, heal, and flash have been unlocked. Overall, it's more interesting and confrontational than before. Headmaster Jean said, after officially entering the virtual space, the students' data, including the spirit swords they are wearing, will be converted into data. The system will compile the data and convert the students' overall strength into data. The value of the spirit sword will be estimated based on its score. There are 2 things that the students have to do. First, they have to develop steadily and absorb the experience of small soldiers or wild monsters to grow. After the data is converted, the students' overall strength will be divided into 20 parts, which are 20 levels. Each increase in level unlocks 5% of their strength. After reaching the maximum level, they will have their original true strength. Second, they have to collect as many game coins as possible in a short period of time to exchange for small magic treasures, and finally synthesize their own spirit sword. That's not bad. Secretary Sun nodded. The leveling up mode is very challenging. Furthermore, synthesizing spirit swords will also help them improve their rapport with them. But how is the value measured? To ensure fairness, the stronger the spirit sword, the higher the value. For example, student Lotus Sun's mysterious sea sword has already nurtured a sword spirit, so there are a lot of small parts that need to be collected and synthesized. I estimate the total value to be around 5,000 game coins, Director Xia answered on the side. Just as the leaders on the stage were whispering to each other, the female host on the high platform said, "Next, I announce the activation of the array. The game officially begins." The current formations were very advanced and were all voice-activated. Before the formation was set up, the female host's voice had already been recorded. Therefore, after hearing the order, a green light immediately appeared on the large field. Then a green pillar of light that connected heaven and earth appeared in front of everyone's eyes. The people from number 60 high were the first to step into the beam of light. To the naked eye of the onlookers, they gradually disintegrated into particles and disappeared along with the green beam of light. "Let's go too." Tang Jingze and the others gritted their teeth and led Feng Huaqing, Liang Wei, Liang Zheng, and Liang Fei into the pillar of light. The students from both schools entered the virtual space one after another. What happened next could only be seen through the big screen on the field. This time, the map was strictly based on the common 5v5 MOBA game design. There was also a stone tablet erected next to the red and blue bases, which shamelessly had the words Cultivator's Ravine carved on it. The crystal tower, the base, and even the monsters in the jungle had been perfectly restored, by killing the small soldiers sent out by the base every 30 seconds and the monsters that constantly spawned on the map. You could obtain the corresponding game coins to synthesize the magic treasures you needed. The ultimate way to win was to destroy the enemy base. Although Wang Ling rarely played games, he had some understanding of the basic rules of this type of game. In addition to being confrontational, this type of game also had to consider the operational aspects of the team. The key was to synthesize the most offensive magic treasures as soon as possible. But because this was a spirit sword exchange meet, as soon as they entered the store, they realized that apart from the spirit swords they were carrying which had been converted into data, there were almost no other offensive magic treasures. Furthermore, although everyone's spirit swords were in the store, they were bound to each other, and apart from their own swords, no one else's spirit swords could be bought. As for the rest of the magic treasures, most of them were functional or defensive. General E had personally designed these things, and no one had known the attributes of these magic treasures before. They relied purely on on-the-spot application and performance. F***K. There are so many things. Won't it take us until tomorrow morning just to read the instructions? The hell? Why is my climbing dragon sword so cheap? Only 998? There's something wrong with the system's data analysis. After the group from No. 59 High School entered the virtual space, they spent a full 5 minutes discussing their route, and another 10 minutes browsing through the treasures in the shop. In contrast, number 60 High School was much more harmonious. Sometimes having someone who talked to themselves could indeed save a lot of time. Then it's decided. I'll go top lane, student Lotus Sun will go middle lane, Little You will farm the jungle, and Master of Dopey and student Wang Ling will be responsible for the bottom lane duo. Each person had 500 game coins to start with. After deciding everyone's route on his own, Super Chin, this damn fat nerd who had been playing games for many years, chose the most common beginner's blank sword, chose the Ignite skill and went out. Name, beginner's blank sword, type, weapon, quality, normal, attack power, 10, gold coins, 350, description. Spirit swords can be combined into a universal magic treasure, the best choice for home or travel. Lotus Sun found her mysterious C in the store, and was surprised to find that it was actually priced at 5,800 game coins. She hurriedly chose the same configuration as Super Chen and went out to spend money. This equipment was too late in development and would take a long time to take shape, but once it was combined, Lotus Sun felt that it would be the key to victory. Feather Lin, who had chosen the jungle clearing route, chose a small beginner's hunting knife, which was sold for 500 game coins. The hunting knife had a higher attack power than the blank sword, and also had a little HP recovery effect. This was the only item in the entire game, other than the spirit sword, that could increase one's attack power. Otherwise, it would take a long time to deal with the demon wolf Fenrir in the wilderness with the newbie's blank sword. Good luck everyone. Don't lose face for our school. After choosing her starting equipment, Feather Lin followed Lotus Sun out of the base. Name, small beginner's hunting knife. Type, weapon, quality, average, attack power, 30, gold coins, 500, description. When you kill a large monster you will receive a 10% damage bonus and a 10% HP recovery effect. This is the key magic treasure for combining the Bear Grylls blade. When the Bear Grylls blade is successfully combined, you can instantly punish a monster, turn it into beef, and share the protein with your teammates to enjoy the HP recovery effect. Now only Wang Ling and Hero Guo were left. The bottom lane combination was usually a support position and an attack position. Naturally, Wang Ling chose the support position without thinking, since it was the least eye-catching. In the dazzling store, Wang Ling saw Hero Guo's Ghost Teeth Sword, which was priced at 2,800. Looking at the data, it was still quite powerful. After that, Hero Guo also chose a blank sword to go out. Wang Ling, hurry up, I can't handle it alone. The reason why Wang Ling hadn't gone out for so long was that he was still looking for Jinka in the store. He had initially been worried that he would display it in public, and was afraid that Jinka would go berserk halfway through. But now that Jinka had been converted into game data, Wang Ling really wasn't curious about how much Jinka was worth. There were no less than 1,000 swords in the store, and in the end Wang Ling found Jinka in a very inconspicuous little corner at the very bottom of the inventory. Name, Jinka Peachwood Sword. Type, weapon, quality, average, attack power, unknown, gold coins. 1. Description, a seemingly useless peachwood sword. Perhaps hanging it around the neck can ward off evil spirits? Chapter 66. At the same time on the field, many screens were flashing, taking care of all directions. Thousands of students gathered on the field were watching this novel team competition. Some were watching silently, some were deep in thought, and some were whispering to each other. Under normal circumstances, this kind of team duel game would have professional commentary. However, this time, Cultivator's Canyon was a trial version and had not been made public. Therefore, there was no relatively professional commentary. All the commentary matters were handled by the female teacher on behalf of the host. It was the early phase of the game, so there was basically no chance of a team battle breaking out. The female host looked at the screen in boredom. There are too many things in this shop. It's too much for my eyes to take in. The camera was moving so I couldn't see it clearly. Even Senior Tang Jingza and the others have to look at it for so long. I don't think I'll be able to get out of this base in less than an hour. The starting coins are too little. I don't know where to start. Below the stage, the students discussed spiritedly. Even the old secretary on the rostrum frowned slightly. This dazzling array of Dharma treasures is indeed a headache. For students who have difficulty choosing, I'm afraid they will waste a lot of time in this store. This time, the system used in the brand new 5v5 competition is only a trial version. In the future, in the regular version, the magic treasures in the store will probably be reduced by 60 to 70%. But that's good too. There are more things in this shop. He had to choose a suitable magic treasure in a short period of time and use it flexibly. And to achieve this, it will be a great test of one's ability to adapt. By the way, does this game have any sort of system reward mechanism? Oh, there are rewards. The party would be rewarded with 500 game coins for destroying the first defense tower. The first person to kill an opponent would be rewarded with 500 game coins. If someone assists, the prize money will be split equally. Also, the first person to synthesize a large piece of equipment, also known as the first equipment reward, will be rewarded with 500 game coins. If we can take the lead in these three reward mechanisms, the team's advantage will increase by a lot. Before he could finish speaking, the crisp sound of the system's electronic voice sounded on the screen. First gear. Then Wang Ling's name was shockingly listed in the system announcement. Wang Ling had fused the first piece of equipment and was awarded 500 game coins. The female host directly exclaimed, "Student Wang Ling from number 60 high school is the first to synthesize a large piece of equipment. Get a reward of 500 yuan. Everyone was shocked and their faces paled. When the caster switched the screen to the shop's inventory, there was an endless stream of curses. Holy shit. Why the hell was there a piece of equipment that cost $1? Holy shit. A person who hadn't even left the base had actually obtained the first piece reward? There must be a bug somewhere. F***CK. At the same time, Tang Jingza and the other four on the red side shouted in unison after seeing the system announcement. The cheapest big piece of equipment in their team was Liang Fei's Ascending Dragon Sword. As long as they killed 2 more groups of minions, they would be able to gather enough money for the first equipment reward. Who knew that this reward would be given to someone who hadn't even left the base? He had to appeal. Protest. A rematch. Is there a problem with the system? Should we pause the match to verify it? Headmaster Jean asked. It's not the system, it's just that classmate Wang Ling's spirit sword is very cheap to begin with. On the side, the teacher leading the team, Old Antique, couldn't help sighing. Classmate Wang Ling comes from a poor family, and the spirit sword he brought to the competition this time is a peachwood sword. The corner of Headmaster Jin's mouth couldn't help twitching. So, this is your strategy? I don't know about that. Maybe classmate Wang Ling has his own considerations. Old Antique shook his head. As he said this, the caster switched the screen to the inventory, and the image froze on Wang Ling's small wooden sword. Everyone was aghast when they saw the price of this wooden sword, a peachwood sword priced at 1 game coin. Was this AF*** king big piece of equipment? It would be strange if he didn't get the first piece of equipment reward. Wang Ling hadn't expected Jinka to be priced at 1 game coin to actually be considered a big piece of equipment. He had originally bought it out of curiosity, but in the end he had accidentally obtained the first piece of equipment as a reward. Now Wang Ling felt that thousands of eyes in the stadium were looking at him in unison, which he wasn't used to. It was really too eye-catching. In order to divert everyone's attention from him, Wang Ling felt that it was necessary to go easy on the others and make an issue out of them to ensure that they developed well and gave them enough room to show off. To divert the audience's attention from him. This was the right way to be a support player. So at this moment, Wang Ling decided not to make another stab. Now that he had an extra 500 game coins as a reward, he would just obediently produce a piece of salary equipment, freeload off some experience and steadily develop. There were a lot of salary equipment in the shop. Even though Wang Ling had 999 game coins in his hand, he chose the cheapest one in order to not attract attention. Name, black-rimmed glasses of unknown origin. Type, functional magic weapon. Quality, normal, gold coins, 300. Description, time is money and money is time. A mysterious pair of black-rimmed glasses made by the Mystic Magic family. Wear them and stare at someone. Plus 2 game coins /1s. After putting on the black-rimmed glasses and going out, Wang Ling was stunned to find that Hero Guo was actually already at level 3. He had wasted too much time at the base. Wang Ling sighed in his heart. He didn't think he was a long-winded person, but when it came to games, he had far fewer opportunities than normal boys. That was because he was always worried that he wouldn't be able to control his power and break the machine, so he definitely wasn't as good at games as these 2 damn fat shut-ins, Super Chen and Hero Guo. But now that he had a new version of the talisman, at least for the next 3 months, Wang Ling's apprehensions could be largely dispelled. During these 3 months, Wang Ling didn't have to worry about breaking spoons and chopsticks, nor did he have to worry about his aura leaking out and damaging any public facilities. During this period of stability, Wang Ling could be like any other normal kid his age. Stay at home on the weekends and play games, or go out to work to earn some extra money. After these 3 months, as the power of the talisman seal weakened bit by bit, the days of fear would return. Because the material used to synthesize the talisman was very special, it would take a very long time for Wang Ling to refine it on his own. Normally, Wang Ling could forcibly speed up the flow of time, but he just couldn't help much in this regard. Because as soon as he got close to the material, he couldn't exert any strength at all. Not to mention the use of spells. While Wang Ling was pondering this, Lotus Sun's voice came from the mid lane. Student Wang Ling, be careful. The enemy mid lane has gone to catch them. The voices of the red and blue teams were interconnected, and voice messages could be transmitted from very far away. The bottom lane in Cultivator's Ravine was a relatively open area with a lot of reed marshes, which was very good for ambushing people. Wearing his small black-rimmed glasses, Wang Ling hid in the reed marshes near his defense tower and secretly observed the situation. In a short period of time, he had already earned back the money he had spent on the black-rimmed glasses. Student Wang Ling, don't be greedy. Come back quickly. Our bottom lane is dirty. We can't beat the 3 of them. Master of Dopey noticed that the opponent's bottom lane combination had already disappeared, and it was very likely that they would cooperate with the missing mid lane to catch them. But could they really not beat them? Chapter 67. The system digitized everyone's strength and divided them into 20 levels. Each increase in level unlocked 5% of their strength. But Wang Ling realized that this kind of digitization didn't seem to have any effect on him. Because he wasn't a Foundation Establishment cultivator to begin with. Up until now, he had been faking his realm at school. Foundation Establishment high schools were filled with students at the Foundation Establishment stage, and the system settings for this trial version of Cultivator's Canyon naturally restricted the digitization to those at the Foundation Establishment stage. In other words, Wang Ling hadn't truly digitized himself like everyone else. His level had also been divided into 20 levels, and he also needed to absorb experience to level up. But this kind of leveling up was meaningless to Wang Ling. So even though he was only at level 1 now, he was now a godlike existence in this map. Forget 3 people, even if it was an entire division of troops, Wang Ling felt that he could kill them with one slash of his sword, but as a qualified support, Wang Ling couldn't do it himself. The economy and kills of the bottom lane had to be given to the carry. Turning his head to look at Hero Guo, who was already shivering under the tower, Wang Ling walked out of the reed marsh. Now Wang Ling decided to take shelter in his body and go out to lure a wave of people. Leaving the opportunity to the others was probably the least eye-catching method Wang Ling could think of. Even if he couldn't kill anyone, he could at least swindle some skills. Tang Jingze, Liang Zheng and Liang Fei were lying in wait in the reed marsh on the red side. In the virtual game space, everyone had turned into a mass of data, and their auras and spiritual senses had been sealed off by the system. Thus, they didn't have to worry at all that their auras would be detected by the opponent. Look, that pretty boy has come out. This guy is only level 1, where did he get the guts from? Look at his shabby appearance, he definitely doesn't play games much. I bet it's a trap. So are we going or not? They squatted in the grass and discussed this, and finally fixed their gazes on Tang Jingza's face. Senior, say something. To be honest, Tang Jingza had refused at first. After all, after these 2 days of contact with Wang Ling, he had already reflected deeply on how toxic this pretty boy with the buzz cut was. Go. Or not go, that was the problem. In this type of MOBA game, it was quite common to rely on capturing people to achieve a numerical advantage. Right now, they had the advantage in terms of numbers and levels. In Tang Jingza's eyes, Wang Ling, who was only at level 1, was like a piece of juicy pork doused in soy sauce and caviar. He could smell the aroma of meat from far away. Finally, Tang Jingza gritted his teeth. Go. With so many people, what was there to be afraid of? On the other side, Hero Guo was still holed up under the tower. From a distance, he could hear rustling sounds coming from the reeds up ahead. Then he saw 3 people, each carrying a white sword, slashing at Wang Ling. Classmate Wang Ling, be careful. Before the spirit swords were officially combined, the effects of the swordsmanship would be minimal, and it would also be a waste of blue bars. After being digitized, the blue bar represented spiritual power. So after careful consideration, the 3 people who jumped out chose to attack normally, and planned to rely on their numbers to hack Wang Ling to death. Pegasus Meteor Sword. Hugging a sister to kill. Starburst Abandon Healing Slash. Although this wasn't a swordsmanship, a normal attack still had a name, and it had to be shouted out loud for it to look imposing. After all, roaring was the way to deal damage. This was an eternal truth. 3 heavens slashed at Wang Ling with a white sword in hand, as mighty and majestic as a man on a horse. Wang Ling just stood there not moving at all. He knew very well what would happen if these 3 people hit him. Although this was only a game, the backlash from his sage body was still there. If these 3 people slashed at him, wouldn't there be nothing left of him from the backlash? This wasn't what Wang Ling wanted to see. Taking down 3 kills was really too eye-catching. So now was the time to test his body movement skills. Wang Ling had learned many of his skills without a teacher, and he had rarely had the chance to use skills that were so lethal since he was young. Only body movement skills were something that Wang Ling could practice when he had nothing to do. In the cultivation world, most body movement skills were about being prepared for a rainy day, predicting an attack's trajectory and then dodging it. But Wang Ling couldn't do this, because this kind of body movement was too advanced and would attract attention. Thus, after a long period of practice, Wang Ling had figured out a body movement that suited him the best. So in the end, Wang Ling's conclusion was, the most flamboyant movement was no movement, and the most heaven-defying body movement was no body movement. Looks like the capture was very successful this time. First blood is about to be born in the bottom lane, Headmaster Jean said solemnly. The female host exclaimed, now number 59 high school's Tang Jingza, Liang Zheng and Liang Fei are the first to attack student Wang Ling, who has misunderstood the power of abdominal muscles. What's the result? Everyone held their breaths as they watched Tang Jingza and the other 2 raise their white swords and swiftly slash at Wang Ling like a clap of thunder. The wind blew up Wang Ling's short hair. This should have been a sure-hit attack. However, a scene that no one could have imagined happened. In the face of the 3's pincer attack, Wang Ling, who had been standing still on the spot, suddenly swayed slightly. The average distance between the 3 swords and Wang Ling was only 0.01 centimeters. But after a quarter of an incense stick of time, Wang Ling turned sideways and the swords actually slashed at empty air. What the hell? What kind of body movement is this? The female host, Headmaster Jean and his friends were all stupefied. Our number 60 high school's body movement lesson hasn't started yet. For student Wang Ling to be able to dodge, maybe he's just lucky. This kid must have learned a body movement skill on his own. Dodging 3 swords with a sidestep, who are you trying to fool? Headmaster Jean, don't get excited. The old secretary is also sitting here, why don't we let him have his opinion? On the rostrum, all the leaders watched the replay from the director's perspective. Staring at the replay, the old secretary shook his head slightly after a moment. I didn't see any body movement skill this student used, it was just an ordinary sidestep. Even this old secretary said so. Headmaster Jean was instantly speechless. The old secretary's strength was unfathomable, and there was no need to doubt his authority. Looking at the economic disparity in the audience, the female host couldn't help sighing. This time, the students from number 59 high school failed to capture the enemy, and also lost money on the army line, so the students from number 60 high school are directly ahead by 2,000. I hope the students from number 59 high school won't be discouraged, and keep up the good work. Hearing the female host's words, Headmaster Chin smiled triumphantly. So for this kind of team game, my advice is not to think about making a big splash in the early stages. Steady development is the way to go. Chin Tianxiang, don't be so smug, I'll definitely overtake them. Headmaster Jean puffed up his cheeks and glared at Headmaster Chen as he spoke telepathically. On the rostrum, the leaders discussed animatedly. Only Ajwa stared at the screen in silence, because he was the only one who knew how unfathomable this youngster was. 6 years ago he had killed a demon king in one blow. Such terrifying strength, even the old secretary might not have been able to do it. But Ajwa hadn't expected that after searching for Wang Ling for so long, the other party would still seem to have sensed him and use all sorts of methods to avoid him. And when they finally met again after 6 years, it was actually at this spirit sword exchange meet. Looking at Wang Ling's youthful face, which had matured a little, and at the same time looking back at that childish little face from 6 years ago. Chapter 68. The most heaven-defying body movement was to have no body movement at all. In this world, there was no attack that Wang Ling couldn't dodge with a sidestep. If there was, then he just had to do it again. Wang Ling felt that all his hard work in cultivating all these years hadn't been in vain. Even the old secretary couldn't tell what kind of body movement this was, which showed that his 100% sidestep body movement was already very stable. Of course, Wang Ling didn't think this was a big deal. He had just combined the most powerful body movement with his own ideas and simplified it to the greatest extent possible. Those devilish steps, those wild and evil phantoms, the speed of 90,000 li, after simplifying all these coquettish things. The real body movement technique was actually just a simple sidestep. Wang Ling's own style was to begin with. Compared with those gaudy and bewitching body movements on the market, Wang Ling felt that most body movement techniques had been demonized. Furthermore, the more complicated they looked, the more expensive they were. What left and right horizontal jump? What 3,000 thunderclaps? What snakeskin phantom? These body movements were just exquisitely packaged accessories based on his sidestep. They were so complicated that they were like Superman's underwear. They didn't have the effect of making him bigger. They looked good but were useless. Classmate Wang Ling, you're so cool. Damn, you actually dodged a pincer attack from 3 people with a sidestep. How did you do it? Master of Dopey was stunned by Wang Ling's actions. Overwhelmed by shock, it seemed that his ability to think had already broken through the limits of a human. For the first time, Master of Dopey felt that his IQ wasn't enough. He didn't even understand how Wang Ling had dodged the pincer attack at all. He just felt that Wang Ling's sidestep had been very ingenious. It was as if the angle of his sidestep had been a condensation of the right time, right place, right people, plus luck and coincidence. It was so perfect that it was indescribable. Of course, Wang Ling wouldn't admit that this sidestep was actually a body movement. But after calming down and thinking about it, Wang Ling felt that even if he said it out loud, no one would believe him. So Wang Ling habitually attributed it all to luck. And the scariest thing was that his friends at number 60 high could actually accept this answer. Because Wang Ling's presence was usually very low, most people's impression of him was that his grades were average, his family was poor, and the most important thing was that he was especially lucky. At the start of the semester, Wang Ling had gotten an SSS grade with just one murderous look. If it hadn't been for a bug in the system at that time, how could he have gotten this grade so easily? Thus, his friends in the upper and middle field sent congratulatory messages. Feather Lin, classmate Wang Ling is so beautiful. This wave is very strong. Super Chin, double-click 666, there's nothing wrong with old iron. Lotus Sun, hee as expected of our number 60 high school's mascot. Wang Ling, in the 22nd minute of the match, the economic gap in the field had widened to nearly 3,000. Number 59 high school was still at a disadvantage, and the situation was still snowballing. The main reason was that Tang Jing's group had been completely bewildered by the failure of the previous 3 grabs. Until now, they still hadn't found a good opportunity to turn things around. Brother Tang, we can't go on like this. Should we look for another opportunity to grab them? The bottom lane duo, which Liang Zheng and Liang Fei were in charge of, began to talk telepathically. After the last round of disadvantage, those 2 guys on the other side have been pressing us to grind down the tower. Now the tower's HP has dropped to half. If we keep grinding, we'll lose all our skin. Tang Jingze looked at his equipment bar. Since the failure of the previous 3 grabs, he had been at a disadvantage. On the other side, Lotus Sun had already made a 3rd white sword in her equipment bar, and was about to make a 4th to synthesize a big treasure sword. And he had only just made his 2nd sword. This woman was really too strong. Tang Jingze was at a huge financial disadvantage. If he continued to be suppressed like this, he felt that by the time Lotus Sun synthesized the mysterious sea sword, it would be too late. A mysterious sea sword worth 5,800 yuan. After being digitized, its attack power was more than 900, and it also had a 200% critical strike effect. It could pierce through a defense tower with just a few slashes. You haven't used your teleport yet, right? Tang Jingze said. Teleport. Bottom lane spike. Let's do it together. Tang Jingze wasn't one to believe in superstitions. If he gave it his all, a bicycle would turn into a motorcycle. You have to get up from where you have fallen. Let's do it. After the people from number 59 high school discussed it, an earth-shattering scene occurred. 2 red pillars of light rose from the 2 reeds on the bottom lane. The female host shouted excitedly, "The students from number 59 high school have now decided to teleport and flank the bottom lane. They're going to attack the bottom lane again." They were facing the expectant gazes of all the students from number 59 high school. After their previous failure as the team captain, Tang Jingze was well aware of how important this team battle was for the team. Can he still face danger with a smile? Wang Ling was startled by the sudden rise of the 2 teleport pillars of light. "Be careful, they're coming again." Lotus Sun warned. "Hold on, we're on our way," Super Chin said. "You didn't bring teleport, how are you going to hurry?" Master of Dopey was about to cry. In order to maintain their advantage in the lane earlier, Lotus Sun and Super Chen hadn't brought teleport, and had both chosen to use the Ignite skill. Feather Lin, on the other hand, had brought Flash. Looking at the 2 healers in his and Wang Ling's hands, Hirogua's cheeks streamed with tears. With their skill configuration, they completely lacked the ability to provide support. The teleport channeling bar was very short, and Tang Jingze, Fang Huaqing and the Liang family's 3rd young master appeared in the bottom lane almost instantly. They planned to cross the tower and attack Wang Ling and Hirogua. "Brothers, let's talk this over. Can't you hold back?" Given the current situation, Hirogua could only think of a way to stall for time. "Sorry, brother, our principle is that if we can fight, we try not to talk." Tang Jingze wouldn't give this chance. He pointed his white sword at Wang Ling, already unable to hold back his thirst. "Kill this pretty boy first, then kill the birdman inside." Wang Ling. Hirogua also understood what he meant and felt insulted. F***K. Just because he had a parrot, he gave himself the nickname Birdman? Saying that, the 5 of them stood up, their white swords shining brightly in their hands as they prepared to vent the anger in their chests. They stepped forward and hacked fiercely, intending to boost number 59 high school's morale. Now that everyone was digitalized, they didn't have to worry at all about hacking someone to death. Even if they were cut, they wouldn't feel any pain. At most, they would lose an HP bar, and after their HP bar was empty, they could continue the resurrection countdown at the base. Tang Jingze had been stifled badly these past few days. Now that he had finally found an opportunity in the game, he naturally wouldn't let Wang Ling off so easily. They could lose the team battle, but Wang Ling had to die. Feeling this resentment, Wang Ling couldn't help sighing in his heart. Why did they have to target him? He was just an innocent support. Faced with the 5 people's attacks, Hirogua didn't have Wang Ling's indifferent mental fortitude, and in his shock, he opened his mouth and screamed wildly. F***K. Support, brothers and sisters. Where's the support? Help. His hysterical cries for help made Tang Jingze feel much better. This was an experience that could only be experienced in the game. In reality, it was illegal to raise a knife to kill someone. But even so, the 5 people's killing intent didn't diminish in the slightest. The purpose of this teleportation was to take their heads. Whether it was Hirogua or Wang Ling, both of them were destined to die. Just as the 5 of them jumped into the turret's attack range and were about to leap over it to attack, 3 people suddenly emerged from the reeds behind them. Chapter 69. Tang Jingze knew that none of the people from number 60 high school could teleport. At a normal speed, it would take them at least 2 minutes to assemble at the bottom lane from the top lane to the top lane. The speed at which they were traveling was a little too fast. Looking at the 3 people who had suddenly jumped out of the underbrush, the leaders on the rostrum were also baffled. This speed of support was really too terrifying. Why are they all here? Standing on the edge of the defense tower's attack range, Feng Huaqing trembled as he raised his white sword. They bought shoes. Shoes? No matter how fast they move, it can't be this ridiculous, right? Tang Jingze swiftly opened the equipment bar, and the scene in front of him almost made him kneel down. Name, reporter's boots. Type, functional magic treasure. Quality, excellent. Gold coins, 600. Description: these are running shoes personally made by the Mo Mage family and specially designed to commemorate our reporter comrades. Wearing these shoes will allow you to break through human limits and rush to your teammates in need of support. With these shoes, we would like to express our blessings to the reporters who have been rushing around the world all these years, always wanting to create big news. Everyone couldn't help falling into deep thought as they watched the director change the image. The breeze in Cultivator's Canyon blew over the reeds, sending a chill down their spines. Lotus Sun, Super Chen and Feather Lin had already emerged from behind the tower, intending to flank them from the front and back. Tang Jingze simply wanted to break the white sword in his hand. What the F***K were they going to do? Seeing that the situation had changed, a certain little fatty who had been holed up under the tower unhurriedly walked out and greeted Tang Jingze. "Yo, big brother. We meet again. I really didn't expect this feng shui. It's like a big windmill spinning." Master of Dopey stuck out his belly and jumped out from under the tower. "Hit me. Tang Jingze, you can't do it." Saying this, Master of Dopey jumped back under the tower. Then he jumped out again. "Curse me." Tang Jingze gritted his teeth. "You can't open your mouth." Everyone at number 60 high was already used to it. In any case, it wasn't the first or second time this guy had a bad mouth, but when he did, there was nothing you could do about it, which was the most infuriating. "Brothers, let's talk this over. Can't we just hold back?" Tang Jingze was well aware that if they were annihilated in this place, their chances of victory would be very slim. "I'm sorry, brother. Our principle is that if we can fight, we won't talk." Hero Guo repeated Tang Jingze's words to Tang Jingze and the others, and then Super Chin shouted, "Go!" Very cooperatively, he pushed the 5 people from number 59 high school into the defense tower's attack range one by one. Tang Jingze rubbed his butt, his face trembling. *CK. This annoying birdman was indeed from the Scorpio constellation. Bearing a grudge. And then, there was no then, given the disparity in equipment and the defense tower's attack, the people from number 59 high school simply didn't have the strength to resist. First kill. Double kill. Triple kill. Quadruple kill. 5 kills. In an instant, there was the crisp sound of a system notification, and a huge team annihilation hung high in the center of the big screen. The female host screamed excitedly, "Team annihilation." Classmate Super Chen's kick worked. Classmate Hero Guo and classmate Wang Ling's seduction was very successful. Classmate Lotus Sun got a pentakill. Pentakill. At that moment, classmate Lotus Sun raised her sword high, as if she was possessed by a soul. At that moment, she represented number 60 high school's fine tradition. She wasn't fighting alone. She wasn't alone. Number 59 high school students collectively covered their faces. F***K. Home ground battle. This was too embarrassing. Director Xie sighed. They've already done very well, but it's very obvious that the students from number 60 high school are much more flexible with their magic treasures. This shows that they're very adaptable. And most importantly, I didn't expect this group of kids to know how to use an advanced team tactic like one-wave attack. Headmaster Chin, I didn't expect Director Xie to have studied team tactics. This comes from Team Tactician God Ye's Guide to Glory. I'm just applying what I learned. Director Xie smiled shyly and looked tenderly at Old Antique. Teacher Wang is the expert in this area. Old Antique smiled bashfully. Honey, you flatter me, I'm just a dabbler. Headmaster Chin, Headmaster Jean and Director Sure. That's enough with you shameless couple. 38 minutes into the match, the economic gap in the field had already reached nearly 10,000. Everyone from number 60 high school had 4 or 5 pieces of equipment, and they were just a little short of combining their big magic swords into spirit swords. In the end, in consideration of the impact of the two schools, Lotus Sun, Hero Guo and Super Chen had all run out to deliver a wave of friendly kills so that number 59 high school wouldn't lose so badly. But even so, the gap in head count was still insurmountable, 12-3. The outcome of this match was already very clear. On the rostrum, Headmaster Jin's expression was very solemn. This was a showdown between the elites of the two schools. In this kind of team battle, given the economic gap, there was no way for number 60 high school to turn the tables unless a miracle happened. Headmaster Jin heaved a long sigh. "AI, we lost." Headmaster Chin and Headmaster Jin had the same relationship as Director Shi and Director Xie. They had been enemies for many years. It could be said that Audiobook was well aware of the ins and outs of these two fellow disciples who had graduated from Seven Star Sect back then. Seeing Headmaster Jin sigh, Headmaster Chin, as the senior brother, also felt a little complicated. He couldn't tell whether he was happy or sad, but he immediately comforted him telepathically. "Junior brother, it's okay, the most important thing is to participate. Friendship first, competition second. Senior brother, remember when we had a duel with swords on Mount Malin and Wuching Peak back then, and I lost? This time it was a duel between us students. I never thought I'd lose to you again. In the end, fate makes fools of people. It's just a game. There are always unpredictable variables in a team battle. This bunch of kids from number 59 high school didn't give up until the very last moment. Their unyielding spirit is a little like yours. The students from number 60 high school aren't bad either. They're very adaptable and resilient. The cunning and shrewdness in their bones, they're just like senior brother." "Haha, junior brother, you flatter me. Senior brother, let's discuss something?" "Go ahead. How many more heads do you want your students to give up?" "Stop dreaming, junior brother. Do you want our spirit sword education to fail like the national football team?" "Then, senior brother, I have another question." "Go ahead. Why isn't spirit swords used in the spirit sword exchange meet?" Chapter 70. This time, Qin Tianxiang and Jin Mayan, these two funny brothers, had come to the conclusion that the Cultivator's Canyon trial would be the trial point of the reform of the Spirit Sword Exchange meet. Before this, the rest of the teachers were all kept in the dark, and it was only 2 hours before the start of the Spirit Sword Exchange meet that they received the notice. Neither of the two headmasters had expected that the reformed trial version of the Spirit Sword trial would be so successful. All kinds of small magic treasures with different functions emerged one after another, greatly increasing the interest of the Spirit Sword Exchange meet. All the students stared intently at the screen and none of them dozed off. In the past, the audience would often hold their heads in their hands and ponder over life halfway through. That being said, there were still unexpected things. After all, this time's Spirit Sword trial was only a trial version, and many of the checks and balances in the duel were lacking. Once one side gained the upper hand, the other side would not be able to resist at all. Then, there would be a situation. It was very likely that before many people could actually synthesize spirit swords, they would be able to end the competition just by using blank swords and big treasured swords. What kind of freaking spirit sword exchange meet didn't use spirit swords? Realizing this, the two clown brothers suddenly realized the awkwardness and seriousness of this question. All the students had brought their spirit swords with them, so how could they not be given a chance to show off? But now the competition was over. After Wang Ling and his friends came out of the virtual space, they heard the two headmasters on the rostrum communicating telepathically. "Senior brother, hurry up and think of a way." Headmaster Jin covered his face. "The Spirit Sword Exchange meet doesn't use spirit swords. If word of this gets out, I won't want to live anymore." "Junior brother, calm down." Qin Tianxiang knew that once this junior brother of his was in an extremely tense state, the young girl's heart sealed in his body would overflow uncontrollably. For the sake of the reputation of the Seven Stars sect and the eyes of the teachers and students of the two schools, Qin Tianxiang's brain cells were working at a high speed. After a while, Headmaster Qin said in a low voice, "Deputy Director Zhua still has a spirit sword performance segment. How about we let Deputy Director Zhua choose a student spirit sword to demonstrate the 100 steps flying sword?" Headmaster Jin's expression instantly returned to normal. "Senior brother is wise." Headmaster Qin, the corners of Wang Ling's mouth couldn't help twitching. On the rostrum, Audiobook stared at the 10 spirit swords on the table and broke out in a cold sweat. To be honest, this ending was much better than Audiobook had imagined. He really didn't know how to use the sky-parting sword, but he could still accept the 100 steps flying sword. Whether or not Audiobook could successfully complete the performance now depended entirely on his compatibility with the 10 spirit swords. One had to know that these spirit swords all had masters. Completely obeying a stranger's words was a huge test of Audiobook's sword riding ability as well as a certain level of courage. As the deputy director of the general administration of 100 schools, he would lose a lot of face if he made a mistake at this stage. I didn't expect the rules to be changed this time. I wanted to use this opportunity to show off Wang Meng and Wang Ji. Below the stage, Feather Lin sighed. Looks like Little Feather's sword control technique has improved a lot. Lotus Sun smiled. Of course. Ever since Teacher Wang showed me the founder of diabolism, I felt like I was in a dream and understood the true meaning of the mother-child sword. What true essence? Hero Guo raised his eyebrows. The combination of the two bastards is invincible. I wonder, whose spirit sword will Senior Zhua choose? Zhua's gaze moved back and forth between the 10 spirit swords. Lotus Sun's mysterious sea sword had already given birth to a sword spirit. It would be impossible for him to control it in the short term. He didn't even want to touch Feather Lin's mother-child sword. It was already difficult to control an unfamiliar spirit sword to begin with, and this mother-child sword was enough to kill him. The remaining spirit swords were Super Chen's Strength Chao, Hero Guo's Ghost Tooth, Tang Jing's Blue Blood, Fang Huaqing's Zhanpa, and the Liang family's Climbing Dragon Sword series. Wang Ling's gaze followed Zhua's. Given the 1 in 10 chance, it shouldn't be Jinka, right? Then he picked up the only small wooden sword on the stage. It's up to you. Wang Ling. Zhua naturally had his own reasons for choosing Jinka. First, this sword looked the most harmless and non-threatening and looked very easy to control. Second, the owner of this sword was Wang Ling. Zhua thought that this was a hint. Holding Jinka in his hand, Zhua secretly made up his mind to perform well. If he could show off Shifu's spirit sword well, Shifu might be happy. Happy your sister. Also, who the F*** K is your Shifu? Don't force me to be your disciple, hey? Wang Ling rubbed the space between his eyebrows, feeling a headache coming on. Now he just hoped that Jinka could restrain its strength in the hands of a stranger. It absolutely couldn't go berserk. Otherwise, with this sword, everyone here would have to move to another city to live in. Although Wang Ling sounded a little exaggerated, this was indeed an indisputable fact. Jinka was indeed a small wooden sword, but there was no doubt about its lethality. Back when he had entered the gate between worlds to save Old Li, Wang Ling had used Jinka to chop off the head of a demon god. After being irrigated with the blood of the demon god, Jinka had been tempered to an unprecedented level. It was also from then on that Jinka, like Wang Ling, was unable to suppress the primordial power in its body. The saying that a spirit sword was like its master wasn't without reason. Next, let us invite Teacher Zhua, Deputy Director of the General Administration of 100 Schools, to give everyone a wonderful performance of the 100 Steps Flying Sword. Seeing that Zhua had chosen the spirit sword, the female host gave a loud shout. Holding Jinka in his hand, Zhua slowly walked to the center of the sports field amid thunderous applause. On the rostrum, Sun Dakong frowned. Is the owner of this sword that student Wang Ling? Next to him, Headmaster Chen didn't know why the old secretary was suddenly asking, but he still answered, yes, it's Wang Ling. Student Wang Ling's family is relatively poor, and our school is preparing to organize a home visit and raise funds for assistance. The old secretary nodded in satisfaction. Well done. No matter how poor we are, we can't be poor in education. We should let every student feel the love and concern of the school and society, so that they can grow up healthily. Next to him, the headmasters, directors and lead teachers of the two schools couldn't help nodding. Secretary Sun is right. Comrades, you've all worked hard. Everyone should show more concern for the students in need. As the old secretary spoke, he still couldn't help staring at the peachwood sword in Zhua's hand. Was it an illusion? Chapter 71. It could only be said that the old secretary was indeed the old secretary. As the most senior and the most unfathomable senior present, the old secretary still relied on his many years of experience in unfathomable realm to vaguely detect something unusual about this small wooden sword. But Wang Ling didn't have to worry about this old secretary noticing anything. Looking into Zhua's memories, he had already read the old secretary's background very clearly. This was an old senior from that era who had once killed a demon god together with several other founding bigwigs of Huaxiao Nation, and was more sensitive to demon god blood than ordinary people. Thus, as soon as Wang Ling had handed Jinka over, he had attached a confusing aura to Jinka, which was like a protective membrane that wrapped it securely up. Wang Ling hadn't chosen to completely conceal the aura of the demon god blood, because that would have been very unnatural. Instead, this sort of half-concealing protection would have given the old secretary an almost misconception. Instead, it would have been better for concealing Jinka's aura. Ever since he had become deputy director of the general administration of 100 schools, Ajwa felt that it had been a very long time since he had displayed any skills in public. The outside world had always called his unassuming character modest and low-key. Over time, that sky-parting sword had become a legend. But the truth was that he really didn't ***king know how to do it. Thus, Ajwa's mood had been very complicated when he had been invited to attend the Spirit Sword exchange meet between his alma mater, number 60 High School and number 59 High School. He didn't think he was a genius. Even when he had advanced to the Golden Core stage, he had inadvertently fallen into a sinkhole and eaten a spirit fruit by mistake when he had been studying agriculture in his second year of high school. It could be said that Ajwa's life was full of all kinds of lucky coincidences and dramas. For example, that inexplicable demon rampage 6 years ago, or that killer maiden who had been arrested yesterday. Who the hell knew how he had taken credit for all these things? In any case, Ajwa had always felt that ever since he had entered number 60 High School, if he wasn't winning without doing anything, then he was on the road to winning without doing anything. Number 60 High School was a place as magical as Bright Longevity Village. Ajwa stood in the middle of the sports field. At that moment, the whole place was silent, leaving the stage to this old senior who had already graduated many years ago. It had really been too long since he had displayed any skills. Ajwa's heart raced and he was a little nervous. Ever since he had started working, Ajwa's chances of coming into contact with spirit swords had plummeted like a drop-off machine in an amusement park. He now knew that he needed to find the right feeling, which was an important part of establishing a rapport with the unfamiliar spirit sword in a short period of time. Theoretically speaking, the 100 Steps flying sword was much simpler than the sky-parting sword. But for high school students who had yet to come into contact with advanced spirit sword courses, this was still a difficult skill that could only be watched by onlookers. Since it was a high-difficulty skill, there was still a possibility of failure. In front of thousands of eyes, Ajwa raised Jinka and did 23 backflips in a row plus 3 Thomas spins, causing everyone's eyes to follow his figure as he wandered back and forth in the air. The blade of Jinka's sword scraped against the air, leaving a long trail of spirit light in its wake, giving the whole scene a different kind of beauty. What an amazing opening! Tang Jingza and the others were stunned. There was thunderous applause all around the sports field, and even old Antique on the rostrum was full of praise. This is the blink swordsmanship, passed down by old Demon Han back then. There are a lot of people who know of this swordsmanship, but those who can execute it so smoothly are as rare as phoenix feathers and Chilan horns. That's right. Even the old secretary was full of praise. This swordsmanship isn't very powerful, but it's the best of all swordsmanship in terms of ornamental value. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say it's in the top 10. Little Zhuozi has been busy with work all these years, but it looks like he's put in a lot of time to practice. Little Zhuozi, hearing how the old leader addressed Ajwa, the expressions of the school leaders on the rostrum were as wonderful as when Ajwa had heard it himself. Headmaster Chin and Headmaster Jean couldn't help pondering, for the old secretary to call Ajwa by such an intimate title. This relationship was really worth pondering. Senior Zhuo is really amazing. Why is this swordsmanship called blink swordsmanship? Feather Lin had a puzzled expression on her face. Master of Dopey snorted in the manner of an elder. Didn't you notice that you didn't even blink when Senior Zhuo showed off his swordsmanship? Blink swordsmanship excels in its elegance. The more perfect it is, the more people can't take their eyes off it. During the Battle of Sherman back then, cultivators who were proficient in swordsmanship on the battlefield used this most basic swordsmanship to confuse the enemy's line of sight and coordinate with the army's attack. I see. When everyone heard this, they all looked like they were suddenly enlightened. After a simple dance with Jinka, Ajwa secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Judging from the loudness of the applause, Ajwa felt that his opening performance could be considered a success. After all, he had been competing in swordsmanship with blink swordsmanship every day since he went to university, and he was even more familiar with it than radio gymnastics and eye exercises. Even though he had been so busy all these years and rarely had time to touch a spirit sword, Ajwa would still occasionally find time to practice it. But the opening performance wasn't much. The performance had just begun. Ajwa took a deep breath. Next up was the 100 Steps flying sword. At that moment, a target had already been set up 200 meters away from the center of the sports field. The target was only the size of a bowl, and for many foundation establishment students, this was already completely out of their field of vision. They could only release their spiritual senses to sense the rough outline of the object. This target is too small, it's a lot more difficult. Director Xia exclaimed on the rostrum. Headmaster Jean smiled slightly. Legend has it that General Yi's 100 steps flying sword can stab a grain of rice from 1,000 meters away. All the leaders and teachers on the rostrum, including the female host, said the same thing in their hearts in unison. F***K, this is too abnormal. This was a godly technique which a certain swordsman had used to assassinate an ancient tyrant, and had been passed down through the annals of history. General Yi had perfected the idea and theoretical framework of this swordsmanship based on history. In the end, it turned out that this legendary godly technique wasn't as complicated as imagined. If the 100 steps flying sword had a difficulty rating of 6 stars, it would barely pass at best. Ajwa had long since memorized the theoretical knowledge of the 100 steps flying sword during his university days, but after putting it into practice at that time, he remembered that his success rate had only been a little over 60%. This was a swordsmanship that was a huge test of technique, timing and explosive power. Please don't drop the ball. Ajwa cheered himself on in his heart, then raised his sword fingers and slowly swept them across Jinka's blade, aiming at the bowl that was 200 meters away. Deep blue spirit energy was attached to Jinka's brown-yellow blade. Then he saw it from a distance. Jinka was trembling violently like Erkang's uncontrollable hands. Not good. His intuition told him that Jinka was very repulsed by this unfamiliar spirit energy, and was about to go berserk. And there were 2 ways Jinka would go berserk. The first was that Jinka would produce near-destructive power, and the sword waves within a radius of 10,000 li would cause a powerful earthquake. But this could almost be ruled out because if it really happened, Wang Ling's eyelid warning system would have automatically gone into a ghostly state long ago. Then, if the first possibility was ruled out, there was only the second one left. Wang Ling covered his eyes, having a feeling that something painful was about to happen. Ajwa never expected Jinka to reject his spirit energy so much. Usually, the best way to deal with a spirit sword's rejection was to slash at the air to dissipate the spirit energy attached to the sword. Ajwa had done the same. But this hadn't been able to stop Jinka from going berserk. The moment Ajwa slashed down with his sword, whoosh. On the rostrum, the old secretary who had been sitting peacefully in his seat, was inexplicably pulled out by a powerful gravitational force, and his pants were directly wrapped around by the blade of the sword and directly ripped to shreds. Then 2 gigantic legs were revealed, hairy legs. Before anyone could react, this inexplicable gravitational fluctuation had already subsided. Then, everyone was horrified to find that the old secretary's 2 legs were firmly wrapped around Ajwa's shoulders. His leg hair, which was as thick as Long John's, danced in the breeze. Wang Ling was speechless at this scene. Chapter 72. This time, Ajwa became famous once again. He became the first man in the world to carry Secretary Dakong's thigh. Everyone who had witnessed this with their own eyes would never be able to forget this historic scene. Not just anyone could carry the old secretary's thigh. Back then, the old secretary had carried a gun and rice on his back, traversing mountains and rivers to ambush a demon god. He was an old senior who had made countless contributions to the country and was still famous to this day. He had actually been carried by a junior. For a moment, a lot of people were trying to figure out the meaning behind this. Ajwa's 100 steps flying sword performance was no longer important. Because the moment the old secretary had been sucked away by a gravitational force, the leaders of the 2 schools as well as the security guards present, had rushed out to protect him. Wang Ling would never forget that scene. Under everyone's gazes and a gentle breeze on the sports field, the old secretary brushed the dust off his body and slowly got to his feet. His long leg hair was a little eye-catching as it fluttered in the wind. He turned his head slightly and said to Ajwa, "Little Zhuozi, come look for me when the event is over." Everyone was stunned. He actually wasn't angry? Everyone knew that the old secretary had another identity. He was the secretary of the Alliance of 10,000 Schools, which was a position of power that belonged to the Alliance of 10,000 Schools. Combined with Ajwa's status as the deputy director of the general administration of 100 schools, his recent achievements, and the results of the polls, a lot of people felt that this seemingly nonsensical scene had actually been planned by the old secretary, hinting to everyone that he had found a suitable successor. Now, it was very clear that this successor was very likely to be Ajwa. "Old secretary, are you hurt?" The 2 headmasters were already scared out of their wits. Who would have thought that such a blunder would occur at the end of the exchange meet? "Hurt? How could I be hurt?" The old secretary smiled slightly. I didn't expect little Zhuozi's sword wave to be so powerful. It ripped my pants. But it doesn't matter, I'll just go change into a new pair of pants. It's very normal for spirit energy to go out of control when controlling an unfamiliar spirit sword. Luckily, little Zhuozi was quick-witted and put the gravitational wave on me. Otherwise, the students would have been in trouble. It turned out that this was Zhuozi's emergency response. Everyone was suddenly enlightened. Don't worry, I'm angry. On the contrary, I think you should thank little Zhuozi properly. The old secretary said, I know that ever since Xiao Zhuozi started working, he rarely had the chance to come into contact with a spiritual sword. So, my original plan was to just let him perform the sky-parting sword, but in the end, you guys insisted on making him perform the 100 steps flying sword. Look, isn't he losing control of his spiritual power? That's why I was there. If the sword wave hit me, it wouldn't affect me, but if it harmed the students, it wouldn't be good. Through this incident, you have to learn a lesson. Sometimes don't force others to do things against their will, understand? Old secretary is right. We will definitely learn our lesson and reflect on it. Luckily, little Zhuozi reacted in time, otherwise he wouldn't have suffered even more damage. Zhuo also stared blankly at the old secretary. Did he win without doing anything again? On the side, Wang Ling covered his face as he listened to everything. He never thought that the old secretary would actually be able to smooth over such a strange matter. Because Jinka's 100% hairy legs on his shoulders, setting automatically attracted the man with the most exuberant leg hair on the scene. What if *** King losing control of his spiritual power? What if *** King reacting in time? The 4-day student exchange meet finally came to an end with an unexpected outcome. There was a saying that went, no discord, no concord, and Tang Jingze felt that this saying was quite appropriate. Although there had been some unpleasantness in these days, overall, it was still an unforgettable memory. This was something Wang Ling had never experienced since he was a child. He wasn't used to living in groups, and had even found all sorts of excuses not to participate in the spring excursions in primary school and middle school. But by a freak combination of factors, he had ended up at number 59 high school to participate in the 4-day exchange meet. Although there had been a lot of trouble, Wang Ling was at least gratified that it had been under control and hadn't gone beyond his control. At number 59 high school's gate, the group from number 60 high school quietly waited for the bus to take them home. It was already Friday and it was time for school to end. For safety reasons, the school had arranged for the bus driver to plan the route so that each student could be safely taken home. Wang Ling had always felt that these forms of transportation were a pain in the ass, because whether he ran or crawled, he was much faster than they could be. Tang Jingze and his group pondered for a long time, and in the end still felt that they should come out to see Lotus Sun off. Although they had lost the competition as candidates for a key city high school, they still had to show their demeanor. At the school gate, Tang Jingze, as the representative of number 59 high school, held out his hand to Lotus Sunday. But he had only stretched out his hand halfway when Hirogwa stopped him. Men and women shouldn't touch. If you want to shake hands with classmate Lotus Sun, you need a handshake voucher. 30,000 yuan each, fair trade. Tang Jingze drew back his claws. So expensive? If it's just to say goodbye, shaking hands with me is the same. I'm the political science representative. I'm here to represent the wishes of the people of both schools. Hirogwa said. On the side, the corners of their mouths twitched fiercely. This fatty's ability to bullshit was getting better and better recently. Wang Ling had always felt that Master of Dopey's biggest attribute was his loose lips, which was even higher than his love of gossip. Tang Jingze had just wanted to say goodbye at first, but seeing Hirogwa's attitude, he was instantly a little unhappy, so he stepped forward and gripped Hirogwa's hand firmly. Taking a deep breath, he said, "Our school's spirit gathering array has been repaired. You're welcome to come again. Master of Dopey, we won. Tang Jingze, our spirit gathering array has been strengthened this time. It's 5 times more effective than before. Master of Dopey, we won. Tang Jingze, our school is going to expand the school building. Install an elevator. Master of Dopey, we won. Tang Jingze, can you not talk about the result of today's competition? It's very bad for the relationship between our two schools. Master of Dopey, your director Sierre is in love, and the person he's in love with is our history teacher. Tang Jingze, Master of Dopey, your delinquent senior has turned over a new leaf. He must have been corrected by our number 60 high school's upright and plain-spoken learning atmosphere. Tang Jingze. Let's change the subject. Master of Dopey, Teacher Odd Zhua, the Deputy Director General of the Alliance of 100 Schools on the rostrum today, graduated from our number 60 high school. Chapter 73. The school had calculated the route for the return trip, and used a one-stop bus service that passed by each student's house. Wang Ling's house was the furthest away, and he was also the last to get home. The school had specially paid the bus driver for overtime to ensure that each student got home safely. Despite the long journey, the old driver didn't complain at all after receiving the money. It was just that when he dropped Wang Ling off at his house, the driver couldn't help sighing for Wang Ling when he saw the Wang family's small villa by the road, which looked like a deserted village nightclub. This child was really pitiful. Nowadays, housing prices in the city weren't expensive, but he couldn't even afford a house in the school district in the city, and was actually living in this deserted suburb. Wouldn't it take a lot of time to get to and from school every day? The driver calculated in his heart that even if he took the fastest Spirit bus, it would still take him 2 hours to get to number 60 high school. That would be 4 hours for a round trip. If this child had to work so hard to get to school, he definitely didn't get enough sleep. No wonder he had a poker face. Wang Ling was indeed a little tired. The main reason was the long bus ride, otherwise he would have gotten home long ago. Sighing a little tiredly, Wang Ling stretched and was about to get off the bus. When he reached the front door, the driver uncle called out to him. "Classmate." Wang Ling turned his head with a blank expression on his face. The driver uncle fumbled in his trouser pocket and took out his wallet. He then took out 500 yuan bills and stuffed them into Wang Ling's hand. "Classmate, I'm also a part-time worker. But looking at your living conditions, it really isn't easy. I don't have much money, but it's a small token of my appreciation. You must accept it." Standing on the side of the road, Wang Ling watched the old driver drive the bus off into the distance, 500 yuan clutched in his hand and his face a mess in the wind. When Wang Ling got home, it was dark in the front hall, and there was only a faint light in the living room, from which the faint sound of a television could be heard. As soon as Wang Ling heard it, he knew that it was Mother Wang's favorite TV series, The Legend of Zhen Huan. This was the sequel to the famous Princess Pearl. It was an inspirational story about a young girl named Zhen Huan, who used her own hard work, sweat, wit and courage to stand out from the other athletes, and finally walked onto the World Cultivation Olympic Games. Mother Wang had already seen the plot on TV, and now the late-night time slot was all reruns. Mother Wang stayed in the living room, waiting for her baby son to come back. However, in the end he still couldn't resist the sleepiness. At the end of the day, Mother Wang was just an ordinary person. Although she had some foundation in body tempering, in the end she was just a muscular middle-aged woman. They couldn't be compared to cultivators. Mother Wang leaned against the sofa, the corners of her mouth slightly raised, probably having a good dream. She was covered with a small blanket, which Father Wang had probably covered her up after seeing her. Wang Ling looked at the time. It was almost 2 in the morning. Wang Ling raised his hand, and a spirit light appeared, directly teleporting Mother Wang to the bed in the bedroom. Then Wang Ling quietly went to the second floor. After being separated from his little bedroom for 4 days, Wang Ling suddenly felt a sense of longing. Father and Mother Wang's master bedroom was on the 3rd floor, and Wang Ling had already taken her up. In addition to Wang Ling's own bedroom, there was also Father Wang's study on the 2nd floor. At this hour, the light in the study was still on, and Father Wang was cultivating in the study. Wang Ling instantly knew that Father Wang was most likely stuck in writing again. For a professional web novelist, inspiration was the life of a web novelist. Father Wang wasn't highly educated, but online novels weren't written in the same way as traditional literature. Reading more novels and accumulating practical experience over a long period of time would eventually lead to progress. Father Wang had been in this line of work for more than 10 years, and his writing was definitely passable. At his current level, he was no longer at the stage where he would type tens of thousands of words every day as a newbie. Father Wang thought hard every day about how to conceive plots and write more interesting plots. Wang Ling had never experienced what it felt like to get stuck in writing, but he could roughly imagine that it was like having a pissing meatball hidden in a nesting doll stuck in the rectum. Writers had different ways of finding inspiration. Among them, smoking and drinking were the most common ways of finding inspiration. But Father Wang looked for inspiration in a very special way. Every time he got stuck, he would click on a certain live streaming platform and try to communicate spiritually with the female live streamers on it in order to draw inspiration for his writing. Father Wang's full name was Wang Jiao. In order to get closer to these female live streamers, apart from spending a portion of his royalties on gifts and tips. He even gave himself a very coquettish ID called Wang Jiaomei. Of course, Mother Wang didn't know any of this. Because if she did, it was very likely that Father Wang wouldn't be able to see the sun rise at dawn. In order to prevent Wang Ling from telling anyone, Father Wang had even unilaterally increased Wang Ling's allowance, which could be said to be very thoughtful. Perhaps it was because he had been on the run for 4 days and too many things had happened, so it was rare for him to have some quiet time late at night. For some reason, Wang Ling was also in the mood that night. Lying restlessly in bed, he wanted to see what on earth Father Wang was talking about. Wang Ling felt that he had definitely been infected by Hero Gua, who had never been so gossipy in the past. Sitting up straight, Wang Ling looked in the direction of the study, his pupils blossoming like a kaleidoscope. Very quickly, the wall in front of him became transparent, and his gaze pierced straight through it to focus on Father Wang's computer screen. Wang Ling looked at the title of the live stream room which Father Wang had entered, which read, "Your Moon, My Heart." Next to the title was the female live streamer's ID, Little Xian. Wang Ling was surprised to find that he had actually heard this name before. This was a female live streamer who had recently become rather popular online. With her pure and pretty little face, sweet voice and witty answers, she was widely loved by the audience because she answered all kinds of emotional questions for the vast number of lonely people late at night. Wang Ling looked at this female live streamer's fan ranking. Father Wang's fan points were actually in the top 10. And this female live streamer's guardian angel. 200,000 fan points a month. This month he had at least gifted this female live streamer 20,000. If Wang Ling took a remote screenshot of this ranking and sent it to Mother Wang now, Wang Ling felt that not even ashes would be left of Father Wang. But in the end, for the sake of family harmony, Wang Ling didn't do so. It was very obvious that Father Wang was very famous in the live stream room. As soon as he went online, the system in the chat room automatically bolded and enlarged Father Wang's ID on the channel's bulletin board in gold letters. Live streamer Little Xian's guardian, Wang Jiaomei is online. The live stream room was now empty. It seemed that the female live streamer had gone to the toilet. The guardian angel of the live stream room had the privilege of speaking directly to the female live streamer. Looking at the female live streamer's empty boudoir, Father Wang raised his eyebrows, straightaway put on his headset and cleared his throat. Then, Wang Ling heard an extremely flirtatious voice that he had never heard before. "Is Little Xian here? Is Little Xian here? Yes. I'm Jiaomei." Chapter 74. After Father Wang's earth-shattering shouts, in the time it took to smoke a cigarette, live streamer Little Xian heard the news and hurriedly ran in. She smoothed her messy bangs and obediently sat down in front of the computer screen. Blinking at the camera, she then waved at it with a pleasantly surprised expression. "Hi. So it's Jiaomei. Welcome. From Wang Ling's aesthetic point of view, Little Xian's looks could only be considered passable, and wasn't as amazing as the online otaku rumors made her out to be. Straight-line eyebrows and an oval face were the hallmarks of an online celebrity. In terms of facial features alone, Wang Ling felt that she wasn't even as good-looking as Lotus Sun without makeup. But he had to admit that compared with those stereotypical female live streamers online, Little Xian was still a girl who looked pretty pleasing to the eye. Her voice was sweet but not bewitching and was just right. Add to that the maid's lace dress and her slender legs wrapped in black stockings. Maybe this was why Little Xian was so popular with the public. Wang Ling cupped his chin in his hand as he pondered this. On the other side, Father Wang had already crushed his cigarette butt and was looking at Little Xian with a resentful expression. It was obvious that Little Xian had already understood his expression. "It looks like our Jiaomei has run out of inspiration again? The old book is almost finished, and there's no inspiration for the new one. In one word, I'm worried." Father Wang rubbed his furrowed eyebrows. There has to be a seamless transition between the end of the old book and the release of the new work. Otherwise, our whole family will have to eat dirt from now on. And it's very likely that we won't even be able to afford tableware. Just buying that prodigal toy will cost us a lot of money every month. As soon as Father Wang finished crying about being poor, Little Xian's other fans in the live stream room started to jeer one after another. "Jiaomei is a guru. Still crying about being poor, we white-collar workers who work every day don't want to live our lives anymore. Well, I'm a newbie. Can anyone tell me what this Jiaomei Big Shot's pen name is? What works has she written? What the hell? You don't even know Jiaomei. Jiaomei's pen name is Wang Situ. Holy shit. It's actually Guru Wang Situ." The live stream room instantly exploded. Because Wang Situ's pen name was simply too resounding. Back then he was a newcomer to the online novel industry. In the end, it took him less than 2 months from the time his novel was published to reaching 300,000 words on the shelves. He used his new work, Let Go of That Wet Nurse, to slay the gods. After the novel was published, the number of subscriptions for the first chapter exceeded 200,000, setting a new record for the number of subscriptions on the website. It even beat all the veteran authors who had been writing on the website for a long time. It could be said that Wang Situ's strong entry at that time was like a black horse that had suddenly broken through the ground under the pressure of the Five Fingers Mountain, catching many old gods who had posted books at the same time off guard. Zhu Gu, a godly author who had been serialized in the cultivation read for nearly 20 years, had left in a fit of anger precisely because of Wang Situ's addition. Although Father Wang rarely talked about his writing at home, Wang Ling had heard about the legends of Father Wang's all-powerful online fame. Over the years, Father Wang had accumulated a lot of fame online and was quite well known. But the name Wang Situ was still a mysterious existence to the S of the Cultivation Reading magazine. Given Father Wang's achievements as a godly author who had won the annual Work Award many times, the website would send him invitations to the annual conference every year, but Father Wang hadn't gone even once. He had refused all online and offline announcements and activities, and devoted himself wholeheartedly to writing. Seeing that someone had exposed Wang Jiamei's identity, the bullet messages in Little Xian's live stream room continued to explode, and even the number of viewers had increased from 300,000 to 500,000. This showed how famous Father Wang was online. I never thought that Boss Jiamei would be Guru Wang Situ. By the way, is Let Go of That Wet Nurse finished yet? Not yet. But it's almost finished. Isn't our Guru Wang Situ worrying about his new book? It's finally finished. Someone sent a crying emoji. I remember when I was chasing Guru Wang Situ's book back then, I was still in Qi Condensation Primary School. I'm almost graduating from university now. Seeing this bullet message, Father Wang sent a sweating emoji. It's been serialized for a whole 13 years. This book should be able to top the word count list, right? Not yet. There's a book called Reborn, The Life of a Bewitching Genius that's still being serialized. It said that a big shot in the cultivation world who was chasing this book came out after 100 years of seclusion to find that it was still being serialized. He was so scared that he almost prematurely transcended his tribulation and was almost struck to death by lightning. Please don't finish it, Guru Wang Situ. Work hard to surpass this #1 book on the word count list. Seeing this bullet message, Father Wang couldn't help laughing. Even if it continued to be serialized, it would be impossible for him to surpass that Life of a Bewitching Genius in terms of word count. After all, it seemed that this book had been serialized ever since the website had been set up. Let Go of That Wet Nurse told the story of a protagonist who was reborn into the body of a frail crown prince of the Qing Palace, and who relied on collecting and training wet nurses to farm and develop his career. Later, the protagonist used a wet nurse Rong steel needle to open up his conception and governor vessels, and with a palm technique that descended from the sky, he defeated the #1 killer in the world, evil god Fire Cloud, and became a peerless expert. Back then, this had just been an inspiration that Father Wang had while sitting on the toilet and reading newspapers in his spare time. He hadn't expected it to be widely loved by readers when it was turned into a serialized novel. But after being serialized for so many years, Father Wang felt that he had already told his story what he needed to say, and it would be too immoral of him to continue. Since it was a novel, he should draw a full stop to the characters he had created. But when he thought of this, Father Wang still felt a little sad. After all, this was a book he had written for more than 10 years and also his first work. It was inevitable that he would feel empty and lonely if he suddenly ended it and started a new chapter. Thus, Father Wang had sought out Little Xian. For one thing, he felt that a girl full of vitality like this could make up for the regrets in his heart. For another, young girls often had a big imagination, and Father Wang felt that Little Xian might be able to bring him some inspiration. Less than half an hour after Father Wang went online, Little Xian looked at the number of people in the live stream room. After Father Wang's identity had been exposed, the number had actually soared to 600,000. Father Wang alone had helped her pull in 300,000 new viewers. To a streamer, this was much more valuable than any gift or reward. Thus, Little Xian simply and straightforwardly changed the title of the room to, "Everyone, let's help Guru Wang Situ think of a new theme." After making the changes, the girl in front of the screen was lost in thought, and it was clear that she was racking her brains. Little Xian had always been calm and unruffled when it came to answering emotional questions, and the audience had never seen her so distressed before. The live stream room soon exploded again. Distressed little Xian. She's still so beautiful. Little Xian's new expression pack, get. Looking at the lively bullet messages, Father Wang unconsciously took another cigarette out of his pack. Now there were 600,000 people helping him think of a theme. Even if he didn't use it, he could at least find a few bright ideas tonight. The moment Father Wang pressed down on his lighter, little Xian's eyes suddenly lit up in front of the screen. I don't know how to write a novel, but I think we can give this theme a try. Jiaomei, what do you think about live streaming? Live streaming? Chapter 75. Online live streaming has been a hot topic recently. Some experts have criticized those internet celebrities who rely on their looks and exposure to stimulate the fan economy. However, they can't wait to stand in front of the screen and rely on academics to easily earn $1 million a month. However, not everyone could do a live broadcast. It was a world where one's appearance mattered the most. In recent years, there were countless people who had died from blind dates. In order to gain a certain level of popularity on an online platform, even if one didn't have the face of an internet celebrity, one had to at least look presentable. Even if you had a blood-red body, butterfly blue hair, and the looks of the Tang family's third young master, if you sang "Ah, 5 Rings" on the screen, you might still become popular. At the very least, it looked more festive this way. Little Xian had given Father Wang a lot of inspiration. Live streaming could be considered a universal topic, and it was very immersive and interesting. But how to develop this theme and make it more interesting was what Father Wang had to think about next. After hearing Little Xian's opinion, Father Wang hurriedly thanked everyone in the live stream room and then went offline. When the netizens saw that Wang Jiaomei's profile picture had turned gray, they instantly knew that this all-powerful big shot in the online novel world was about to make a move again. This time, just what kind of reign of terror would there be? Father Wang was a very efficient person, and this efficiency was reflected in every aspect. For example, in the time it took for the water to boil, Father Wang could do 3 things on the toilet: eat, read the newspaper, and switch between hundreds of alternate accounts to argue with the trolls in his book review and comment section. That night, Father Wang stayed up late to draw up a basic framework and outline for his new book. Even the first chapter of the new book had been completed. Title: The Live Streaming Life of the Immortal King. Introduction. This is the story of a big shot in the cultivation world who is unable to suppress the primordial force in the main body. He broadcasts the daily life of an immortal cultivator in the human world. Wang Ling kept looking at Father Wang's computer screen, and somehow had an ominous premonition. Given Father Wang's current level of writing, he could already write fluently at the beginning of a chapter. He had already checked for typos several times. Then Father Wang clicked his mouse and directly emailed the document to his chief. Father Wang's chief was surnamed Song Zikai, and his code name was Lai Shou. The circle had given this chief the nickname Lai Mengmeng. When Wang Ling had visited his house before, he had used his eye technique to check this person's business card. This was the only Father Wang had come into contact with offline in the 10-odd years since his debut in the online literature industry. This was a very good-looking and thin young man. He looked a little weak, and he had neatly trimmed bangs that gave people a clean feeling. With the computer on, Father Wang made a cup of tea and waited quietly for a while. Very quickly he heard a ding-dong sound. In Chief Song's reply came. This gold medal in the industry and a promoter of premium novels only took an average of 30 seconds to review a manuscript. Wang Ling found this particularly miraculous. Wang Ling skimmed through the contents of the reply. It said that the theme was very bright, and there was nothing wrong with the writing. But considering Father Wang's appalling performance in his first book and his current status on the website, Lai Mingming planned to have Father Wang write a few more chapters to fill up 20,000 words before posting it on a trial website to test the waters. Wang Ling had heard of this website before. It was an independent VIP website specially set up by the Cultivation Reading Network for veteran readers who had been registered on the website for more than 100 years and had high spending power. On this website, readers could be the first to read Novel Guru's new works to test the waters, and they could leave comments and give their thoughts and suggestions to the authors. Looking at this reply, Father Wang was silent for a while, but in the end he nodded and accepted it. After all, it had taken him more than 10 years to gradually perfect and successfully create his godhead under the pen name Wang Situ. Given that he didn't know how popular his second book would be in the market, Father Wang really didn't dare rashly publish it. otherwise his godhead would shatter if the results weren't up to standard. He would definitely become a laughing stock in the industry, right? Wang Ling was speechless. A person who could rely solely on a pen name to attract 300,000 viewers on a live streaming platform that had nothing to do with online novels at all? How the F***K were those website flops supposed to survive? In the morning, Mother Wang had prepared breakfast: deep-fried dough sticks, soy milk, and her specialty rejuvenation noodles. Mother Wang untied her apron and shouted upstairs, "You two, come down for dinner." Looking at the table full of food, Wang Ling was almost moved to tears. After being ravaged by Mother Wang's dark cuisine in those few days at number 59 high school, it was probably only Mother Wang's cooking that could heal his wounded heart. While they ate, Father Wang pushed up his black-rimmed glasses and stared at Wang Ling carefully for a while before sighing. "Tsk, you seem to have put on weight in the last 2 days." Wang Ling touched his face and indeed felt that there was a little more fat on his cheeks. This was probably the result of Mother Wang's cooking fermenting in his stomach. But it didn't matter, losing weight was never difficult for Wang Ling. Wang Ling rubbed his cheeks hard with both hands, and the fat on his face was instantly rubbed off like plasticine. How the F***K was this possible? This was the first time Father Wang and Mother Wang had seen Wang Ling's ability. Father Wang ate a mouthful of rejuvenation noodles. How has group life been these 2 days? Wang Ling was blank, but in the end he shook his head. "I heard that a lot of things happened when I sent you the talisman seal?" Wang Ling nodded. Father Wang sighed. "Actually, I think you're just too nervous. Maybe if you act more naturally, nothing will happen. You should interact more with people your own age, understand?" Wang Ling continued to nod. "All right. What's the point of saying this when we're eating?" Mother Wang interrupted Father Wang. "But Ling, remember to review your homework a little in the next 2 days. You can't do too well, but at least don't be at the bottom. You still have to learn what you need to learn. I've asked around about the classes you've missed these 2 days, and I specially went to your school to pick up the revision materials. You just need to take a few minutes to go through them later." "Okay." Wang Ling finally said, the first word he had said since returning home. The truth was that Wang Ling didn't need to review Tao talismans or spells at all. But he still had to find time to memorize history, politics, and so on. Even top students like Feather Lin and Lotus Sun in the elite class would have to spend at least a whole day to digest a week's worth of lessons. In contrast, it was much more convenient for Wang Ling. Using the speed reading memorization spell, Mom no longer had to worry about my studies. But before the start of the wonderful weekend, Wang Ling didn't want anyone to disturb him while he was studying, especially when he was using the speed memorization spell. If he was disturbed during this period, there was a high chance that his memory would go haywire. So, to avoid such a situation, he opened his pencil case. Chapter 76. Wang Ling sat in front of his desk, which was covered with a large pile of exercise books. Although he had gone to participate in the 4-day Spirit Sword exchange meet on behalf of the school, Teacher Pan's principle of handing in homework hadn't changed. What had to be handed in still had to be handed in, no matter how much homework had been missed. The intelligence of these two gremlins, pen and eraser, was linked to Wang Ling's. Wang Ling could order them to automatically complete homework for him, but the prerequisite was that he had already grasped the knowledge for the homework. After missing 4 whole days of class, what Wang Ling needed to do now was to make up for the knowledge he had missed. As for the work on the tip of the pen, it would be left to the two gremlins, pen and eraser. It took Wang Ling 2 minutes to compile a list of this week's learning content for easy sorting out. He found that there were actually quite a lot of missing knowledge, especially cultivation physics and advanced cultivation mathematics. In just one weekend, these two teachers had actually assigned 5 test papers each. To use one word to describe it, it was infuriating. To use another word to describe it, it would be insanity. This was probably the first reaction and attitude of most students when they saw this pile of homework. On the contrary, Wang Ling was a very studious person. Ever since he was a child, he had taught himself everything he knew about cultivation, including the 3,000 great Taos. It was like the facial features and hair of a baby at birth, which had been deeply imprinted in his mind from the moment he was born. But language and culture learning were the result of Wang Ling's hard work. And Wang Ling himself very much enjoyed this process of hard work. Learning was the only thing that could make him happy. At his desk, Wang Ling opened his textbook, put on the earplugs and turned on self-study mode. Previously, he had heard people complain about how this earplugs could cut off the endless telepathic communication brought on by the mind-reading ability. The reason was very simple. It was because this earplugs contained the same material used to make the talisman seal, which Wang Ming had personally invented. It was a peaceful and tranquil weekend because Wang Ling's eyelid warning hadn't sounded any alarms in advance. Around noon, a gray commercial Chuanjiangguo RV was parked not far from the Wang family's small villa. "Miss, we've arrived. This is the place." In the limousine, a well-dressed old butler turned his head and said to a girl. The girl crossed her slender legs and looked to be about 12 years old. She was not tall, wearing a pair of cropped jeans, a loose hip-hop top and an Aral hat. The two little wings on the side of the hat stole the show. This was a little Lolita with a delicate face and the appearance of a child star. Fortunately, there were not many people around the Wang family's small villa. Otherwise, the young girl would definitely be recognized. Of course, in the past, the young lady enjoyed being recognized in front of others. But now that she was in a place where no one passed by for half a day, the young lady no longer expected anyone to recognize her. Sighing slightly, the girl looked through the window at the Wang family's small villa not far away. "The man that my sister has taken a liking to is in that villa?" "Yes, it has been thoroughly investigated, miss." "Eh? Could it be that you investigated wrongly? How could my future brother-in-law be a poor wretch living in such a desolate suburb?" "There's no mistaking it, miss. This is the address I got from eldest Mrs. Personal Driver Lu Zhao." The old butler answered in full detail, "But I have to remind you that it's a little too early to call him brother-in-law. Although we now advocate free love, eldest Mrs. marriage is very complicated. When eldest Miss was born—" Fine, don't tell me this. You're so annoying." The young lady rolled her eyes. "Isn't it just the yin and yang death tribulation? I've known about it for a long time. I also know that the fortune teller left behind a message telling you the way to break this yin and yang death tribulation." The old butler broke out in a cold sweat. "Miss, be careful, that's an exalted immortal from Mo Immortal Castle." The young lady shrugged helplessly. "This is the scientific cultivation era. I don't know where you get all these feudal superstitions from. I don't think this old faker's solution is reliable at all. When the yin and yang are in chaos, I'll dye the blue sky with my membrane blood. It sounds like complete nonsense, okay?" The old butler shook his head with a wry smile. "It's better to believe it than not. Besides, this was what the exalted immortal from Mo Immortal Castle said. Eldest Miss must find this extraordinary person who can dye the blue sky with his membrane blood in order to break the death curse." The young lady couldn't be bothered to continue arguing with this inflexible old butler. She straightened her clothes and got ready to get out of the car. She looked at him. "Have you prepared the gifts?" Although it was their first meeting, she still had to prepare some gifts so that she wouldn't lose the demeanor of Huagua Water Curtain Group. This was what the family had taught Sun Yu since she was a child. The old butler placed a Cosmos storage bag into Sun Yu's hands. "Young miss, there are 2 longevity immortal peaches in this storage bag. After eating them they can prolong your life and moisten your intestines and loosen your bowels. After eating them they can nourish your skin and loosen your bowels and loosen your bowels. After eating them they can dispel internal toxins and loosen your bowels and loosen your bowels. After eating them they can nourish your stomach and loosen your bowels and loosen your bowels. In addition..." Enough. Sun Yu didn't wait for the chatterbox to finish. She snatched the storage bag frantically and hurried out of the car. The young lady stood at the entrance of the Wang family's small villa, completely unaware that a serious man was studying on the 2nd floor. After pacing back and forth in front of the villa for a while, Sun Yu mobilized all her brain cells to think of an opening speech. It was the weekend. The person who would open the door might not necessarily be the male classmate that her sister had taken a fancy to, but most likely his parents. Then when she opened the door, should she say her real name or her stage name? Her stage name was Xue Tao, and Sun Yu thought that her name was quite well known. But there was no guarantee that her reputation would spread to such a remote area. It would be very awkward if someone didn't know her stage name. Just as Sun Yu mustered up her courage and was about to knock on the door, figures suddenly flashed in front of her, and 2 burly men, each 10 feet tall, jumped down from the roof beam. "Holy shit! Who are you?" Sun Yu was stupefied. "Miss, I'm very sorry. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."